Have to do that, and I forgot to do it here for the whole meeting, so I don't want to run that risk again. So, Hank, glad to have you join us today.
Well, yeah, I get these messages every week, and this one seemed more compelling than a few of the others, being a sort of non-tech person, but extremely interested in AI at the conceptual level and what that might mean to humans. So I thought I'd drop in today and hear and maybe contribute a bit.
Great. That's great. Yeah. Our meetings, even if they sound technical, and we do try to do demonstrations on most weeks, but it's more showing the capabilities and the trends because the thing that we're most interested in is what are the likely impacts going to be on day-to-day life for everybody, and what does it mean for society in general. So that's our major focus. But we have to look at the details to understand how things are evolving and how quick things are evolving. So
Totally understand and agree. I'm happy to be here today.
great, great. So Lisa Anise, good to see you again.
Oh, you weren't exactly seeing me.
Yeah, well, I saw your name tag.
There you go.
Oh, and Nasir, I think you're new here as well. Okay, we've got several, looks like several.
GG.
Yes.
Hi, sir.
Hi, Nasir. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And Heinen, also. Have you,
Hi.
have you joined us before, or is this your first time?
No, this is my first time. I
Oh,
couldn't join
okay.
previous Saturdays because I was working, but
Uh-huh.
today I'm not. I'm off work, so
Oh, okay.
I can
Well,
join.
glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Fatima, I think you're new as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm Fatima Parvez,
Mhm.
and this is my first time I have attended your session.
Okay, great, great. Glad to have you. It seems that mentioning job loss has brought a lot of new faces to join us today. But that's great. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to see who else might join us, and so and then we'll get started here. We are recording, so those who missed the meeting, we're working on a platform about, I would say, three-quarters of our meetings of the last 6 months or so have been focused on AI, artificial intelligence. And the reason for that is we're a Rotary Club. We're a Rotary eClub. And like all Rotary clubs, we seek to be of the greatest service to our community. But what makes us a little different is our members come from all over the world. So our community is the entire world, which makes us a little different from a lot of other Rotary clubs. The other thing here is when we talk about service, what do we mean by service? We believe Rotary, first of all, is the largest association of business and civic leaders in the world, with roughly 1.4 million members in about 46,000 locations around the world. And as business and civic leaders, we think we're probably one of the biggest collections of people with strategic skills and experience. So when we look here at how we can best contribute, we believe that is by being able to contribute our abilities in strategic analysis and thinking. And the greatest service that we believe our community needs more than anything is help in avoiding the severe and potentially existential consequences of the many problems and threats facing our community, facing our world. And these include things like climate change, the threats of nuclear war, and of course AI, and which we'll get into. Now, many of these things offer promises, and some of them, but some have the positive side and the negative side, and we have to look at both if we want to do service to our community. So that is where we're coming at the world from with these kinds of discussions. Now, one might say, "Oh, look, wow, what a bunch of crazy people that think they can solve all the world's problems." Um, Actually, it's not a question whether we believe we can. It's a question of whether we believe we must. And when one looks at that, our tagline of our club, uh, let's see, I think I have it right. You're not going to be able to read that. Um, you're not going to be able to read it, but okay. We basically seek to be the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the
Sir,
world, the whole
sir,
world.
may I speak for a while, sir?
Uh,
Just ask a question to you.
okay, let me just finish this last piece and I'll come back to
Okay,
you.
okay, okay, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we
Good.
we see ourselves, or we seek to be the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. Because we believe we've got to set our goals based not on what we think we can do, but on what we think is needed. And regardless of whether we know how to achieve those goals or not, it doesn't change the fact that they're needed, and therefore we've got to go for them. So we look at some of the statements of some famous people, people like Michelangelo, who said the problem for most people is not that they set goals too high and fail, but that they set goals too low and succeed. And we look at Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, who saw uh, those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And when we analyzed that, we had a lot of discussions, especially with younger people affiliated with our club. And we started to say, well, how did he ever come to that conclusion? And the thing we came to here is that those who believe they can are the ones who try, and only the ones who try can succeed. And that's why the name of our club is Dare to Be Great, because we have to dare to try. And so this is what we're about. It doesn't make any difference how big the problems are. They don't go away or become smaller just because we don't address them. So that's a little bit about us crazy people. And if you think you're crazy enough to think you can change the world, we definitely invite you to join us because it's going to take a lot of crazy people to move the world. Okay, so Nasir, you wanted to say something, please. Oh, wait a minute. Let me before I come to Nasir, just so we get you on the record. Let me officially start this. Ding. I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, and I declare this meeting on 22 February 2025 to be open. The topic for today is, like it has been for a number of meetings now, is artificial intelligence. And why is that? Because we believe right now, at this moment in time, artificial intelligence is, on the one hand, the most dangerous threat facing our world, and on the other hand, one of the most promising opportunities facing our world. Because the impacts are likely to be measured in months or in only a few years, as opposed to things like climate change, that this is one reason why now is the time that we need to be talking about this, about where it's all leading us, and what we should or can do about it, and should. So before on today's session, we wanted to look at well, we've heard so much about how much the world's going to change in such a short time. And a lot of people go and say, when they're planning, I participate in a lot of sessions at different parts of the world. And one of the things I continually hear, especially about, I have a lot of people from universities that are participating in this, and their talks about, oh, okay, how we have to change university programs and things like this, and how we have to prepare young people for their university studies. And a lot of the questions are, given the speed at which AI is evolving, um, do universities even have a role in the future, and why? I don't want to jump ahead on that. We'll get into that. But the real question is, well, come on. What's the likelihood that that's going to happen that quickly? There's so much hype, and then half the time it doesn't deliver. These promises don't deliver. So why should we all get tied up and worrying about things like this? They were talking about AI 40 years ago, and nothing came of all the job losses and things they were talking about then. So why should we care now? And we want to dig into that a little bit as to what are some of the trajectories that are evolving right now that we can see, and what they might lead to. And so, in some ways, we want to be like a meteorologist. A meteorologist looks at the weather patterns and looks at the temperature of the oceans and the currents, and tries to estimate where are storms likely to originate, and then what's the trajectory, where are these storms likely to go, so people can be warned to prepare themselves in the case of those storms. And how severe are they likely to be? And we look and say, well, there's a such and such percentage chance it will go this way, but there's another percentage of chance it will go another way. And what determines which trajectories are most likely? And we want to explore those things so we don't get blindsided by events that happen that we're not prepared for, especially if they're moving so fast that it could be existential, what happens if you are not prepared for those changes. So that's what we're going to get in a little bit today, because there's some new things that have happened that are enable us to maybe see a little further into the near future, as to the speed and direction these evolutions are taking, and why some of the claims that people are making might be true or might not be true. And so that's what we want to go into. But before we start, we have here Nasir has asked to say a few things. So Nasir, if please, if you go ahead. Just be sure it's on topic, though. That's very important.
Yeah, sir, I just need to clear two things, sir, regarding this, regarding what you are working on. I wanted to ask you, sir, one thing that is related to, you keep on saying that we can, those students who are going to pursue a 4 year degree, so they can do it in 1 year. So I want to know that the government can recognize that degree completed in 1 year as the value counted in the previous degree completed in 4 years.
Okay, just quickly, because we can later on here, maybe we can delve into the education aspect of all of this, because obviously, if jobs and society changes, it's going to have impact on education. And as AI is evolving here as a means of providing knowledge to people on demand, basically, that changes it. One thing we have to recognize about a lot of our education systems, especially higher education, there's two separate functions involved. One function is learning, and the other function is credentialing. So we see here, for example, people that have worked in a field for 10 years or whatever, and they're really expert. Maybe they've even written a couple of books on a subject, and they go to a university and say, "Hey, I know this inside and out, and I want a degree." And they're sitting there and saying, "Well, okay, but you got to pay 40% of what you would pay to go to school here for 4 years, and then we'll give you a degree." Or no, you have to attend at least 2 years worth of classes even if you already know more than the professors, doesn't make any difference. We want to charge you for the credentialing. And I think one of the things that we are hearing evolving on this is the idea of separating the function of credentialing from the function of education or learning. And we see that, and it's been around for a long time on certain professions. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, you got to pass the bar exams. It doesn't make any difference whether you have a degree from a university or don't. You have to pass the bar exams in a jurisdiction, in a state or whatever, to have the right to practice in that state. And that applies to a number of professions. But we see now one of the things that's coming more and more is professional certifications from vendors, Oracle, Microsoft, others out there are providing these professional certifications, and that's a form of credentialing. I personally, I think what we're going to see in the not too distant future is the separation of credentialing more and we will have many, many companies and organizations that do testing and whatnot for credentialing. And that's going to count much more than whether or not you've got something that says you attended some institution for a certain amount of time. So I really think that's going to come because knowledge is going to be so easy. Sal Khan, the founder of Khan Academy, he has a triple degree from MIT. And one of the things that was interesting is when he was asked, well, how did you manage to be able to get a triple degree? And he said, "Oh, well, I found the secret. The secret was never go to class." Because he could learn so much more spending his time on his own to research things and find information than he could by going and sitting with 100 other people watching a professor that was 50 meters or more away giving a monologue for the most part. So anyway, but we'll look into that because there's a lot more at play there, including the question of is education even needed in the future? That is going to become a very important part here. However, let's jump in and if that question is not answered as we go along, please any of you please bring that up again and let's dig into it deeper. I tend a lot of these meetings I feel are too much of a monologue and I'm talking and talking and talking. And we really, whether it's questions, but also whether it's your insights and your experiences and whatnot that can contribute to making these meetings have more value. So jumping into this here, as I said, the main purpose of today's meeting is to explore what's the real truth behind all these stories that AI is going to upend our whole world, that AI could lead to the end of all jobs. And if you haven't heard the term before, post-labor economy. That's the I guess official term for the jobless society and but are those people just some crazy people that just say stuff to be sensationalist, or is there some reason or logic behind the idea that we are moving towards a jobless society or a post-labor economy? And what does that mean for all of us? And not only with regards to jobs and income, but just our interaction with other people. Author Yuval Harari, the historian, has said that one of the biggest issues that we will be facing shortly is that because AI is getting to be better or will be soon better than humans in everything, literally everything humans do. It's already, we've got studies out there showing AI is rated to be better in empathy, emotional intelligence, and all the things that we thought are things reserved for humans. That's what makes us human. But AI is outperforming us there. And because AI basically sees itself as having the goal to want to please us, that they are able to deliver to us a more satisfying or rewarding experience in everything. So whether we're venting about our jobs, our bosses, our spouses, whether we're just wondering, gee, what should I do? Should I go this way? Should I go that way? That AI is most likely going to be our favorite companion, our coach, our tutor, our mentor, our best friend. And our assistant that we will be spending almost all our waking hours with, because it's such a rewarding experience, better than any human can give us, because it's trained to serve us, as it's trying to anticipate what's going to make us happy and deliver on that. And that's why, for example, the early versions, we had so much hallucination because it was trying to give the answers it thought we wanted. Whether or not it was true was secondary. It wanted to please us with its answers. Now, and I know I've been talking about the cognitive world right now until now, but we're going to see here that the physical world, the humanoid robots that we might not be able to tell, is it a biological human or is it a humanoid human? How far away is that? It may be much, much closer than anybody imagines. So before getting into that, Kurt, yes, please.
Oh boy, you always bring forth these incredible ideas to be able to reach, and a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's heaven for is my idea. And every meeting we get some of this, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And if we don't have a focus, if we don't know what we want to have, what good does it do us? And why don't we reach for peace? Peace like we've never had it before. So when I'd like to be able to, let's say, prompt people to use the AI that they investigate to be able to figure out all the different ways that are necessary to bring about peace. Because I have a friend who happens to be a Zionist, and I happen to hate what's happening in Gaza. And it's like another genocide. He thinks it's retribution for what the Muslims have done forever and all that. Of course, he has his blinders on, like anybody on either side, and so on. So how is it that we can remedy the things that haven't ever so far been remedied? And we can do it in establishing, like Bucky Fuller said, a new paradigm to replace the old one. So this is the biggest challenge for these incredible minds that are on board right now, looking at the same crazy man appearing and disappearing in front of them, because I have those powers, but who doesn't? And so we get to play with this consciousness. And I want to prompt another thing. There's an amazing guy named Greg Braden. He came out with an incredible book, and it's called Pure Human. And I highly recommend that. Yuval Harari, he knocks the ball out of the park whenever he writes. Well, same thing with this guy who's like a 7-time bestseller, is Greg with 2 G's Braden, his newest book. So I put into the chat as soon as I get it down. I think I have it down to there. It is. Okay. A little challenge for you, and I'll back off and listen and try to participate because I know Bill has helped me in using AI to a degree that I've never thought I could. And I'm looking to be able to do a lot better too. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt, for those. But a big warning when we use the word we. I've been in a number of meetings, for example, at the UN, and the speakers will invariably say at some point, "We need to be doing this," or "We need to be doing that." And I then ask for the clarification. Please tell me who are the we, because we tend to use that word, but when we ask, "Oh, will all the we stand up?" Very few people stand up, and that's one of our biggest challenges. And actually, here when we look at some of the early applications of AI, a lot of people are using that to create we's, to whether it's informing or whatnot, because AI is being very heavily used in the area of marketing and feeding into social media and so forth, to create we's. Now, their we's are we need to have this product, type of thing for the most part, or service. But it's the same philosophy at the end. At any rate, let's jump in here and sort of paint a picture of some of the things that are happening, because right now I would say we are less than 2 months into 2025. And I would say here, what has happened let's go back to the beginning of December, end of first week of December. Since the end of the first week of December, the developments, the releases of AI tools and the announcements have been of greater impact than anything since the first announcement of ChatGPT, which is where most people in the world first learned of what was happening with AI back in the 30th of November. Let's call it 1 December of 2022. It's just mind-boggling of how AI has evolved. And about I guess it's 2 weeks ago now, with the release of ChatGPT Deep Research, which is built on the O3 model, has been reported that that is a tenfold increase in the power of AI over where we were in December, in early December. So in less than 2 months, we saw a tenfold increase in the power of AI. We could call it intelligence, but we can truly call it artificial intelligence, because there's not much intelligence really there, and when we look into how it works, but it has the effect of intelligence. And since then, just since this 2 weeks, we've had the release of Grok 3. We've had several others, but we've also had the announcement that we are very close to the release of ChatGPT 4.5, and 5.0. Now, that is expected to be another tenfold increase in capability over O3, which means that in less than a year, we will see a 100-time increase in the intellectual power, if you would, or cognitive power of AI. Now, to just give that some number that maybe makes a little bit more sense. We've seen here experiments where people have taken their PhD, their plan where they got the approval to study something to get their PhD, and they just dumped that little description of what they wanted to do for their doctoral studies into deep research, and the result, while not being 100% as good as what they achieved in 5 to 6 years of study and writing, but it was close. It was very, very close to accomplishing in minutes what took that person 5 to 6 years to come up with. And there's another projection here from ChatGPT or from OpenAI that they expect that before the end of this year, that the ChatGPT or AI will be able to develop software better than 99.8% of all developers out there. So now, software development is not a low cognitive skill. That's complex. You got to be a good problem solver. You've really got to have good knowledge of tools and protocols and syntax and so forth. It's a high level skill, and they're saying it will be better than 99.8%. So when you hear people like this, the CEO of NVIDIA and the heads of Google and others say, "Don't study to be a programmer. There's no future." This is what they're talking about. So before I go further on that, Joan, please.
I'm just listening and trying to keep on topic because you know me, I think ecosystem. What is the reason for this race and this fastness of everything? Like, honestly, like, yes, it sounds great for technology, but these technologists, if we want to call them as systems engineers, have gotten caught up into being better than human beings, faster, better. Like,
No, I don't believe it's the engineers.
okay, so
The thing about it is, if I've got a company, I don't care what my company is.
yeah, I'm asking, I'm not saying that's
Yeah.
who it is. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, for example, so the system, the AI system, is going to be better than human beings in terms of knowledge, doing it faster. But we haven't designed a society for people to exist.
Yeah, but keep in mind here, most people in the world are not concerned with developing a society. Most people are concerned with how do I personally get ahead. So when people go out there and they say, "Hey, I've got a small business." Well, the guy down the street's got a small business and he's trying to take my business away. And I'm trying to grow by taking his business away. Okay, so how can I do that? Well, one of the ways is, can I make something that's better or cheaper, or I can do it faster? So I'm looking for ways to do that. And one of the ways I can make it less expensive is if I can cut my costs, if I can cut my headcount cost, because labor cost is a major cost to companies. So almost every company out
So
there.
I get it, Bill. I understand that, you know, competition is good, but there's, I mean, there's another way. I mean, like, why are you making all that money? Why are you, you know, you're becoming enslaved to the system? Like, what I'm trying to say is that all of the language that's being used is faster, better. It's like a, what do you call it? Bang, bang, thank you, ma'am, kind of approach. You know, like you can take a softer approach. You know, like, uh, I guess what I'm trying to say is AI has a place. It's not going to go away. So I'm not naive. What I'm saying is that the paradigm shift is not that AI is going to go away, is that we have to change how we think of how we live.
Let's go and look at this at a very macro level, a geopolitical level. Okay. Why is, if we're trying to be a peaceful, loving world society, but yet one of the biggest investments area in the whole world is how do I create the weapons that will kill more other people of the other side than anybody else? I need to be first with the most powerful weapons, with the best, because if I'm not, the other guy who's doing the same race, he's going to kill me first. So I better find a way to kill him before he can kill me. And that's the main movement of most of the movers and shakers in the world is kill the other guy before he can kill me. Okay, beat the other guy before he can beat me. Because if I don't, the world is littered with companies that no longer exist. Why don't they exist? Because somebody else came along and did what they were doing better, faster, or cheaper, and took all their market away, and bingo, they're out of business. And so, it's like the golden rule. Every religion in the world preaches the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But when we go out and we leave our religious organizations, it's all about do unto others before they can do it to us. And that's a reality, I think, that we've got to face. Yet, as I said in the beginning, we are looking to see how can we make a better world. So we have to put on the table and say, look, one of our goals has to be how do we get people to live that life, think that way? Because right now, those billionaires out there, those 100 people with hundreds of billions, we're sort of thinking, hey, if I can earn a little bit more, I don't have to work so hard. I can relax a little bit. But what we see is the people who have the most work the longest hours. They don't work the less hours. They work the longest hours because somebody else might have $1 billion more than me, and I can't have that.
Yeah, just to wrap up what my thought is, like, we did that with food. You can go to the grocery store and pick up in half an hour, pick up your groceries for the week, where we used to spend a whole season growing it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
they make that convenient and cheap, and now you're programmed to do that. Now they want to do that with knowledge. So you don't have to leave it to us good guys that are making all these weapons to be defensive against people who might be doing the same thing. So now become you're now programmed to be scared instead of being programmed to have dialogue and saying, why are those people being bombed? Take a different approach. I don't hear anything in AI that says, oh, geez, this is a peacemaking piece of equipment. It's all about like defense and making sure we're better than the other person. The other person might attack me. I mean, I go back to we can go back to religion, and all religions say it's about peace. And I always say, why do we have so much war if all the religions believe in peace?
Yeah. Well, the
So,
thing is, though, there's two things I'd like to bring out on that. One is here that the AI foundation, the companies building AI, most of them actually built in a lot of functionality to block AI from being used for wrong reasons, for bad reasons. And but what that's gone out of fashion. So right now, we see with Elon Musk, hey, no, you can't censor. If you want to use AI to figure out how to make a nuclear bomb, we should not block you on that. Everybody should have the freedom to do anything they want. And but in the beginning here, we saw that really the organizations behind AI bent over backwards to be ethical and make sure they were not. You could not go, for example, create images of violence or create images showing bad things, or you could not go and say, how do I do something bad? You had to trick it. You had to go and say, well, I'm making a movie about somebody doing something bad. Can you advise me? And you could figure out a way to get around those, but they really tried to go and block the bad behavior. But as far as the bigger issue goes, and you're mentioning here, well, it used to be we spent a season having enough food for the year. And why do we feel now we've got to go to the store and be able to do it And we've dropped from 80% of the population working to provide the food for all of us to only needing 2 to 3% of the population making food or for all of us. But we have to remember when what did that happen? When we came and said, okay, we now have tractors and we now have other things for food production, so we don't need you humans anymore in the food production cycle. What did that do? That freed up resources to be able to go and provide services. So we were able to go and create a health service capabilities. We were able to go and create education capabilities. There were many, many services that our society wanted that we could just not do when it took everybody's hands to be just making enough food for all of us to live. And now all of a sudden, because we became more efficient in the food production, now we were able to go and address these other interests. So we're sort of moving up the Maslow hierarchy there from saying, "Oh, I just need to have the food for the real basics of." Hold on a minute here. This is asking me what language we're speaking here. Um, so we've been able to move up, so we don't have to spend as much time working on just the very basics, and we're able to think on other issues that are of value to society. But it doesn't stop us from having bad actors out there, or it doesn't stop us from having people who don't see themselves as bad actors, but whose behavior um, is not good for society. There's a lot of people that are saying, no, wait a minute, I'm just trying to go and have a comfortable life for me. Well, to have a comfortable life for me, I need elbow room. So I need a big piece of land. Well, if I need a big piece of land for me, maybe that means other people can't have as big a piece of land because I took more than my share, if you would. And but these are the kinds of issues we have to get into. But AI per se is something that has the potential to enable us to find cures for diseases that we were, especially hereditary diseases, that we were never able to really deal with because we just didn't have enough brain power out there to be able to focus on things like this. And there's many things solving climate change here, coming up with more climate neutral devices, whether that's for transportation or for heating or other energy. So AI has the drive for efficiency is going to really be great for that. And it's interesting here that there are so many people that say if we can get rid of jobs, if we can get rid of all the jobs, so guess what? So humans don't have to work to survive. They don't have to do something that is other than what they might want to do for their own personal satisfaction. They don't have to do things to get their basic needs met. So they call this, there's people like Peter Diamandis who wrote a book called Abundance. And he says, we're going to come into an era where there's going to be the robots and the AIs are going to make everything we need. So we're going to have no hunger. We're going to have there's no poverty because everybody's going to be able to have everything they need because it's not up to the humans to do it. So that person with disabilities is not disadvantaged anymore because they, just like everybody else, can get everything they need. So this is one of the things that we see is that if AI and robots do result in doing everything, they're the production of everything and so forth, that could lead to a world where there's no poverty and there's no hunger because there's such an abundance of everything we need. And it can also lead to their finding ways to do all of that in ways that are not harmful to the planet. But that requires that we have a framework that values everybody having a degree of equality. Because otherwise we run the risk that, yeah, it can do everything we need,
But
all to
I
the
see
benefit of
AI
humans.
doing the opposite to that.
Why?
It's going to be people who are in control of that technology that will say, hey, I don't like your religion, and you're saying that I'm a bad guy. I'm going to shoot you down, whichever side
Right.
that is,
Yes.
um, which is happening now. And it becomes the power. So I'm not going to make sure that I withhold your food. I'm going to, like, there's all kinds of things
Oh, you're
that
absolutely right. There was a Time magazine had a issue about 2 years ago, and the cover was bright red, "The End of Humanity." And as it got into that, it said AI could result in the end of humanity, but not because it's AI. It's because humans are terrible animals. Humans are evil. And because it's the evil of human nature that is going to destroy the world. AI is just going to be the tool that they might use. So the lesson out of that is that we really need to be focusing on how do we change human nature? How do we change human behavior?
only if we take what you just said as truth. I believe that human beings are good and bad.
Right?
There's no such thing as a good human being and a bad human being. Everybody has variations. That's what makes us human. Otherwise,
Right.
you'll be gods.
Right.
So you have the West saying, we're morally right. We know what's right for you because we're Christians and we're going to go to heaven because we're doing the thing. But they don't look at the things that they do. So how
Mhm.
do you um, get people who think that they are in the promised land and God's on their side and it's on the other side too?
Yeah.
Other religions think it too. But they don't go out and pretend to be the good guys. They know they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
But are they? What we have to look at is why are they fighting? Why are they doing it? If people are hungry, if people don't have hope, if people think that they're being stepped on, they're going to fight back. Is that mean you're evil or you're just standing up for your rights?
Well, yeah, you bring up
Like
a point, but
it's all an interpretation.
yeah, but this is why. Why do so many countries spend, or at least until now, have donated so much to the development of other countries? Just this past week at the UN, there was a pre-conference about the financing for development. How can we help close the gaps, if you would, between the hungry and the people who are living the better life? And we don't have to go and look and see what the Northern Hemisphere versus the Southern Hemisphere. I live in the United States, and I only have to go about 10 kilometers here to see what misery is. And yeah, so I think, but AI, what's the advantage of AI? AI has one huge advantage of helping to close the knowledge gap, if you would, between, let's say, the privileged class who sends their kids to preschool and they speak two languages and they read and they write and do numeracy before they even get to kindergarten, and those who grow up in a family where the parents had no education, they don't speak the local school language in their home, and those kids go to school 2 years behind in mental maturity and verbal vocabulary, and by fourth grade they're hopelessly behind and they're going to drop out and they're going to end up spending time in prison because they never had a shot to get anywhere. And so AI could have a huge ability to help close that gap and create a more equal opportunity, if you would, for people to be what they can be. AI has the potential to help inform, to be able to create the tools. People like Kurt can now create presentations or identify who are the media outlets that can help us spread the word to get people to be pursuing peace or being saying, "Hey, I'm going to reach out to other people in those other societies over there who think we're the enemy." and show them we're not the enemy. We want to be their friends. Okay, AI has a huge opportunity to be able to do things. So on the one hand, we have people in some political parties that are sitting there and saying, "How do I use AI to be the super propaganda machine?" To confuse people, but that's just because it's the tool. I can take a hammer to help build a shelter for somebody, or I can use it to bang people over the head and steal what they've got. So, but before for right now, I think we have to separate the between what can I do with these kinds of tools to understand what the tools are and where it is, where it's currently taking us. That's before we try to intervene to maybe change the trajectory of where things are going. We first need to understand where is it likely to be going if we don't do anything. And that's what we want to talk a little bit about today, because there are those people out there that are saying, hey, within 4 years, 5 years, there's not going to be any jobs for 50% of the working age population of the world. And societies cannot exist having 50% of their people not being able to survive, have an income to survive. They will find a way. And that way might be beating their neighbor over the head to steal what they have. In Taoism here, one of the thoughts is you don't want to be the wealthiest person in the community, because there's other people that are going to be thinking of how do they take what you've got. And so you're going to be looking over your shoulder all the time. And if you don't want to be looking over your shoulder all the time, don't allow a situation where there's so many people that are desperate to have what you have.
But you can also share, and you don't have to create those enemies in the
Yes, but
first
you can.
place.
Yes, but you can. But that goes back to the we. That the problem is that the we, when you go into a big crowd and you say in a stadium, there's a big football match going on, and saying we, and then this half all gets over here dressed in green, and this half gets over there all dressed in red and white. We don't have the we. So before it's a little bit that we have to avoid the thinking that if we do nothing, people will do the right thing, because we can't look back at a lot of examples in history where that's happened. If we look back through history, we can see history, even if we go back to when we were on the savannas coming out of the trees and learning to walk upright. It was our tribe against your tribe. Everybody that we don't know is a potential enemy or a potential next meal. And we've only evolved certain way. We're wearing clothes and everything, but a lot of that original instinctive mindset is still up there. But we have to find ways to combat that. I've spent a pretty long time backpacking in China, and I grew up in an era where Chinese are the enemy. Chinese, they're all slaves. They have no rights. They're living in miserable situation. But I'll tell you what, in traveling with them and talking to people, and they're very happy when you ride the trains there, and the people are whipping out their smartphones with their translators, and everybody wants to talk. And you find out they have the same values, they have the same interests, they have the same concerns. I was amazed to hear just common people that you met on a train talking about how complaining about their government, that their government was not doing enough to support the religious affiliations. If you go anywhere near a neighborhood with a mosque in China and see the number of people attending the mosque or churches, and then you find out that the churches are financed, the government finances the maintenance of the churches in this country that we've been taught is so anti-religion on everything. So, so much of it is just get to know your neighbor, when you know the people on the other side, you find that they're just like you, and they share so many of the same interests and values. And it's just that somehow we've thought strangers.
Or you're brainwashed to think that other people are inferior and that they're the enemy.
Yes.
And that's the problem, is
And that's
that
right. So what we can do is, how do we leverage our voices? And
yeah.
one of the ways we can do that, AI is really, really good at helping leverage your voice, whether for good or for bad. And we can't leave the stage to those who are leveraging their voice for bad. So we've got to find the way to try to leverage the voice for good. And AI is a good opportunity for that. Anyway, let's jump into what's actually happening. Because as I said, so much is happening so fast. When we talk here and you talk to most people and you talk about, yeah, well, it's going to lead to loss of jobs, or it's going to lead to this, or we're going to have all these humanoid robots walking around on the street next to us. And people think, yeah, that's 10, 20 years away. That's I have bigger problems right now. I can't be worried about what might be happening in 10 or 20 years. And I think here one of the biggest problems we got out there is that an awful lot of people have no idea of what AI can do right now. But even more so, what is it likely to be able to do in just a matter of months, or maybe only 1 or 2 years? Are we potentially going to be where they're thinking, yes, that might be 10, 20, 30 years from now, that we might be talking less than 10 or 20 months from now. And so what might make people think that that is what is likely to happen? And I think the developments of the last 2.5 months really tell a big part of the story. We have gone, as I said, a tenfold increase of intellectual power uh, in just a couple of months, and we're looking at that probably continuing. But the big changes I think that we're seeing is a move towards agents. So until now, for the most part, AI has been, I can ask it a question and it will give me an answer. That question can be, what is this or what is that? Or how do I do this or how do I do that? But more and more people are starting to get into questions like, why is this likely to be happen? Or what if this were the case, what would be the likely outcomes? Now, one thing here that so many people think is, you know what? Yeah, AI can do a lot of work things for us, but there are certain things that make us human that AI can never do. AI can never be as empathetic as a human because AI can't feel. But the thing about it is that in blind studies where people don't know they're receiving empathetic messages, and they don't know if those messages are coming from a machine or from a human. They're rating the empathetic messages from the machines better than the empathetic messages from the human. Because as we know, if we go just walk down the street, not every human is as empathetic as every other human. And we we unfortunately think this is an issue of uh, man versus machine, the intellectual human intellectualism versus the intellectual of a machine. But that's not the case. What we're really seeing is it's the knowledge and experiences of an individual versus the collective recorded knowledge and experience of all humans, with the advantage of knowing what ideas and what actions of all those millions and millions of humans led to the best results. And that's able to then deliver that best result. So now we're asking that individual human to be smarter than all of humanity, all the rest of humanity. Well, all humanity, because it includes themselves. And that's just not possible. And that includes saying here, okay, what empathetic behavior among all those masses led to the best results on something? And as a result here, that one human who on the scale of empathy could be at 100, but could be down at 10% or whatever, that empathetic behavior, the human who may have tremendous empathy, but maybe is not so good at projecting it. How does that compare to the best projected empathy of all of humanity? And obviously, the individual human is not going to win that race. So that is the one side on it. That's very important for us to understand. And then the other thing here is that when we talk about job losses and everything, the one of the things we get, and especially from AI. Now, I talked a little bit before about AI bending over backwards to be ethical, to be pro-human. And so we get a lot of bias from AI. Some bias is because the majority of the information that has been recorded and captured comes from only parts of the world, and therefore there's a bias towards the thinking of wherever the data comes from. But there's also this bias of what is being said that we should be saying or should be thinking, regardless of whether that's true or not. So if you go and ask about the situation of the evolution of AI and the impact on jobs, AI is going to come back and tell you, oh yeah, well, no sweat. The humans will just need to retrain and uptrain, and they can move on to the jobs that where humans have the advantage, and AI will never be as good as humans. But as I said, we've already seen the results of the test that that's not true, because empathy is what how the recipient measures empathy is what counts, not what's in the heart of the machine, the person or device that is generating the empathetic behavior. Okay, but so what we wanted to get into here, and the invite was pointing out some of these latest developments that are impacting how quickly this is evolving. And last year we saw that the big items, if you would, were adding voice, making really advanced voice, so you have true conversational exchanges there. That advance, bringing that in. Another one is vision, live vision, having AI be able to see and understand whatever is visible to the cameras, and not only its own camera, but any cameras that are networked to it, or any videos that have been recorded. Another one is it being able to see and understand what's on the screens of the devices that it can interact with. So that we've seen that capability come into being. And then reasoning, to be able to go and think through multiple scenarios, multiple possible results of different situations, and then being able to go and evaluate, to compare these potential outcomes to conclude which one is more likely or less likely. And then finally, another big one that most of us don't even think about is memory. Having AI be able to remember all the interactions that you've had with it, or all the interactions other people have had with each other that it knows about. And it's those elements, if you would, that make it possible for us to now go in and have a conversation with AI, a conversation about what is visible to to its cameras, or have a conversation about what is on your screen, even to the point of saying, "Oh, can you explain to me how to use this software? I'm trying to accomplish this or that." And the AI is saying, "Okay, well, first thing you have to start off is you need to click on the start button. Oh, where's that? Oh, it's on the upper left-hand side here." And you move your mouse over it and you say, "Is that the button?" And it says, "Yes, yep, that's the button." Or it says, "No, no, no, it's the one to the right of that." Okay, being able to have that kind of a conversation to be able to learn and understand anything. Or it could be that's saying, "Hey, I am trying to fix this piece of furniture over here. Look at this is wobbly on the corner. How can I reinforce that? How can I fix that?" And it might come and say, "Well, you need, try using a piece of angle metal there. Then, and how do I fasten it? You can fasten it this way or that way, or you could use glue and then this kind of glue and that kind of glue." So, in other words, because it can see, it can tell us what to do about everything. I can be making a meal and I'm getting ready to put some salt in, and it says, "No, no, no, that's too much salt." Or it says, "No, no, wait, that's not the salt, that's the sugar," because it remembers and it knows what it's seeing. So that kind of capability is mostly there. Where what's not there is that not every device has the universal interface that lets us communicate to do whatever we want to do. Joan, for your case there, I can take my camera out, my little victory garden there, and it can point out and say, "Hey, look at the third plant in here that needs some help. It's missing some kind of nutrient. That maybe can you give it some nutrient?" Or the water is being blocked. It's not getting down to the last row on the plants. You need to give some extra water down there, or what have you. Or
So again, I'm going to say that AI is a good solution for that. So I love to cook and I love to grow plants, as a lot of you know. I love to eat, probably I should say, because the cooking is to get there. Um, but part of cooking and growing is making mistakes.
Mhm.
So some of my best foods have been because I made a mistake, or my husband made a mistake, or we're like, "Oh, I didn't think that spice would have been good in it, but we meant to put this, and it tasted good." But I don't want a piece of technology to say, "Last time you did it this way." I want to be able to make that decision about what it is that I want to add. So this is the problem I'm trying to say is that I'm an individual and I have my own way of doing things. I understand that. And most people are looking for standardization. We're so embroiled in standardization that we're scared of change.
Yeah,
And
I think there's a difference. There's nothing that says that you've got to do what the AI says. The AI can be going and saying, "Oh, wait a minute. If you put that in there, it's going to be very bitter." And you can say, "Well, yeah, I want to see how bitter myself, so I go ahead and do it anyway." Uh,
yeah, I'm just saying, I'm not arguing against AI because I think it's here to stay. I'm just saying that we have to be conscious of being who we are and not let AI take over our life and saying, "You've got to know the best next tech." Like I hear young people talk about having the next Apple phone, and I'm thinking, you have a phone. Like, my God, you're paying $800. Did you earn that money? No, your parents paid for it. Like, you don't deserve that phone if you haven't, like my own daughter, I told her, it doesn't matter if I can, if you want that, you work for it.
You know what? I have to pay for my own phones.
Yeah.
But the thing is, here I'm going, "Oh boy, I can't wait for that next release that's going to have these additional features in it," because those features are of value to me. And so
And that's what I'm saying, an individual decision.
yeah. But the thing about it is you're right. On the one hand, anybody who's worked in the corporate world knows the biggest challenge you've got is getting everybody in the company to follow the same procedures, your standard operating procedures. Why? Because if that person gets sick and the next person has to jump in and continue where they left off, if everybody's doing their own thing, that's not going to work. And we also, in interacting with our customers and whatnot, they have certain expectations of how we're going to react. If they can't trust what kind of reaction they're going to get from us, they're probably going to go somewhere else where they can. Why do we go to McDonald's when we're traveling? When you're traveling on the road, there's very few people that are looking, where's the most exotic place I've never been before? Let me go there.
I do.
I
Yeah.
do.
I do.
That
Absolutely.
That's rare because most of us are in the hurry to get to the end place, and the last thing we want to have is kids or grandkids there complaining that there's food. So we're going there, or as we call them, the McDonald's restrooms, because you can always count on having a clean restroom when you see a McDonald's sign. So
I go out of my way to avoid them.
Yeah, me too.
the restrooms.
No, well,
No, the
when you're in
McDonald's.
Paris, the washrooms are so clean, they actually sanitize it after every single
Yeah.
person use it.
No, I think, but anyway, but the key thing here is the standardization is so much. You're 100% right. We need to have the space to be whoever we want to be and to think the way we are. And one can argue that by AI freeing us from the routine of having to go and just be a cog in the wheel of something. It's freeing us up to have the time to pursue whatever the things are that make us different and make us give us are interesting to us.
Until the robots are doing all the work that we normally do, and
no, because
then
then
it
they're the
becomes
ones
totally
doing.
standardized according to what they think that we want.
Sure, but the
Yeah.
thing about it is they're doing the routines, and it's interesting here that because the AI now with memory, that it's remembering you. So if your wishes and your interests or your approach to things varies from the norm, it's going to respect your interests. It's not going to go and push you into the norm. It's now going to go and say, but I know you approach this thing differently, so I'm going to communicate with you in the way you approach things, not the way the standards call for necessarily. So, but the thing is, it's interesting. I saw some people from Texas complaining about the people who live in the cities in the Northeast and saying here, you know what, those people are just slaves. They've got traffic lights. We don't have any traffic lights here because we're smart enough to know to stop or not go. But the thing about it is they barely meet another car in a given day on the roads because there's not that people living there, many people living there. When you get a certain number of people living in a
Yeah.
concentrated area, you need to have rules. You need to know how to interact with one another.
You got
And
to go to India.
I couldn't imagine
Honestly,
stop
I was in
signs at all the
Hyderabad
intersections.
and they hardly had any lights. And I mean, it was packed. And I did not see, I was there for 12 days. I didn't see one accident. And yet there are cows walking down in the street. There are people crossing. There's scooters going here. There's people doing here. Cars packed. The bus is here. Not one person went, hey, whatever they swear. None of that.
yeah, well,
They miss
that would
they
give
miss
me,
your car by that much, but
yeah,
they will miss your car
That's
because
right.
that car is so
Although
valuable to
my
them.
experience in India when I was there back in the late 90s was that we were traveling on the highways between the hotel and the factory, and every single day I saw an accident. A
In
big
India.
rig truck every day, no matter every day.
Where in India?
In the north
In
west
the
Right.
Punjab,
So a different experience.
Punjab
I'm
area.
saying I was in Hyderabad and I did not see one single
yeah,
accident or anything.
well,
yeah.
you see plenty of trucks on the side of the road with their axles broken or whatever. That when
Yeah,
you're
there were trucks flipped over, trucks that had jackknives. So like it was
Yeah,
You
Just
overload them is the
chaos almost.
biggest problem.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Huge.
I think here, there's pros and cons to that.
yeah.
Surprisingly, it sounds to me like the parts of India where you were, Joan, are the place that Elon Musk should set up his next factory. Because,
Actually, Hyderabad is the tech center. The Google
yeah,
was
right,
there,
right.
all of that. So,
Yeah,
I mean, we were there for an internet governance
yeah, yeah.
conference.
Well, the thing about it is China was estimated to be at least 10 years behind in the development of self-driving cars up until 2017. And then a company there took serious to say, hey, we want to get into that business. And in 3 years, they overcame that 10-year deficit. And the reason why is because the drivers in China are much less disciplined in a lot of the roads. So they were able to collect many more variations of situations much, much faster in China than you could in the United States, where in general people follow the rules. And so we needed a lot less variations to be described for the self-driving cars in the US, but they would not meet the needs of places that were more chaotic in the driving situations. So this is one of the reasons why China, that this June, we will see the first official driverless taxis in a major city in America. That they are expected to start business in June in Austin, Texas, and you'll be able to call a ride share and have your car with no driver, not a safety driver, no driver in that car, and you just get in and it takes you to where just like any taxi would. And
I've seen those videos.
Right. But here's the thing. You've been able to do that for quite a while in many cities in China. Many cities in China have self-driving taxi services. And there's just many, many videos of Westerners who are sort of shocked to get into a taxi with no driver and be driven around with that. Okay. But that's one point of the advance. Now, if I've relayed here the story about a year and a half ago, I think it was. San Francisco forced one of the major self-driving car manufacturers to take all their cars off the road to San Francisco. San Francisco was one of the first cities that experimented with self-driving cars. And they started to get a lot of news reports about the self-driving cars being involved in accidents in San Francisco. And I think there was one death there attributed to an accident that involved a self-driving car. And that resulted in a lot of media attention, and it caused a pullback on the experimentation with self-driving cars. But then somebody went in and did a analysis, and they found in the previous several years that in terms of accidents per 100,000 miles driven or million miles driven or whatever it was, that human drivers had twice as many accidents per mile driven than the self-driving cars. Then they went in and they looked at all the accidents that were involved, and they found that the of all the accidents that involve self-driving cars, 7 times as many were caused by the human driver in the other car. 7 times more accidents were caused by the humans than by the self-driving cars. And then when they looked at the injury situation, they found that accidents with human drivers had 5 times more serious injuries than accidents that were involving self-driving cars. So guess what? They encouraged the self-driving cars to come back to San Francisco. But this is
Yeah, if they
something.
were all self-driving cars, we could probably be driving like trains
Yeah,
and really, really close to each other,
right.
and nobody would ever hit anything.
Right. But the bottom
Anybody.
line is here that if this experiment goes well in Austin, within just a couple of years, we will see most major cities in the United States having self-driving cars. And Elon Musk has really bet a lot on his future of manufacturing the self-driving robo-taxis. And his business model is that you buy a one of these cars that are capable of being a robotaxi, and when you need to use it, you use it. It takes you to wherever you want to go, and but after it drops it off, you turn it over to the robo Uber out there. Who and your taxi will work for you, and you share the revenues with the Uber organization or whoever's organizing it. So your car is not just an expense; it's actually making you money while you're sleeping. So the expectation is that very quickly, a lot of people are going to buy these cars, turn them over to these services. The competition is going to drive down the taxi fees, if you would. But the bottom line is because cars are not spending 90% of their time sitting parked somewhere, that we only need one-tenth as many cars. And what does that mean? That means for everybody working in the automobile manufacturing industry, we only need one-tenth as many cars. A lot of people are going to lose their jobs if they're in the car making business. And so
There's
uh,
a counter argument to that actually, because the shift from fossil fuels, nuclear energy to renewables, that what's been actually also happening is that cars parked in their parking spots become batteries, and they start exchanging energy, storing the energy from the uh, intermittent renewables, and so all those cars that are now being parked in the parking lot and plugged in are becoming the storage for the energy systems, the intermittent renewable energy systems. So we need all those cars parked in order to stabilize the energy systems as well.
well, maybe, but that might only be until there's a stretch of highway, and I'm trying to remember where it is, that the car, by driving on those highways, is charging itself continually while driving. In other
It's a
words,
fraction. It's not going to be
yeah,
enough.
yeah. But the and of course the other thing is here until we get to the solar power generating paint, so that the surface of all the cars is
Well, the surface of every rooftop of every building
exactly.
will
So
have that.
at,
Yeah,
at any rate, the bottom line is here when we talk, because we have to remember
which is
self-driving
another thing
cars.
Elon Musk has invested in as well.
Yeah. We have to remember, though, the bottom line, self-driving cars are nothing more than robots. They're just
Mm.
another form of specialized robots. Um, so, uh, but we were talking about how the advances in AI, in the capability of reasoning with you, communicating with you via voice, the multimodal capabilities, being able to see your screen, being able to do all of these things. And one of the big shifts that we're going to see this coming week on the 26th, that Amazon has a big event that they will be introducing the real full AI into their Alexa product. And so that now you're just going to be able to talk in your house on a continual basis with this friend that remembers everything that you talked about and knows what you know and what you don't know and what you're interested in, and you're just going to be able to converse about everything with. That's coming to your home. And I don't know, there's supposed to be a new release of the Echo Show, but I don't know if it's the one that's on the swivel, which means that it will be able to see and show you things as you're conversing with it. In addition, we saw this past week, Gemini has moved a lot of its Gemini, or Google's moved a lot of its Gemini 2 over into the smartphone version of Gemini. It's much, much more capable than it was just a week ago. And we are 100% on the way to having the full, really the full capabilities of just talking about anything with your device, and it will do everything that you could do on a laptop or what have you. And this is going to move us more into that 24/7 best friend companion. Related to that is the push that we now have Google, Apple, Meta. Everybody's moving to the wearables, AI wearables. The preferred form seems to be glasses right now. That So we see cooperations with companies like Ray-Ban to have intelligent glasses that can see whatever you can see, your AI can see. Whatever you can hear, your AI can hear. And it can show you things by projecting it right into your glasses, and it can talk to you about anything you see. So it's like having a best buddy walking next to you, and you're talking about everything that's happening around you. So this is coming. So all these things are basically here right now. The only thing that's the big piece that's missing is that universal voice. So you don't have to go to GPS for map stuff or maps. You don't have to go into search to search. You just talk to this one interface and say, "This is what I want," and it's going to take care of it and do it for you. Uh, that that is something that, given what we already saw with the release of the Samsung 25 S25 a couple of weeks back, Google gave us a little bit of a peek into where its assistant is going to be very shortly. We can expect an upgrade to Siri, what they call Apple Intelligence, which was pretty stupid in its first release, but is expected to get a huge upgrade very, very quickly. We know that with ChatGPT 4.5 and 5, the level of intelligence there that you're going to have basically your PhD researcher advisor sitting on your shoulder all day long on everything you do. So it's like having a specialized consultant to advise you on every action you're going to take all day long, every day. But that is not where things are going. That's where we're going to go through. We're going to go through a period where we have that thing that tells us how we can do whatever it is we want to do at all times. And because that instant knowledge it's instantaneous, it's always there to tell us whatever we need to know knowledge-wise. This is one of the things that's going to bring into question what's the purpose of education. If I have access to all the knowledge in the world instantaneous, what am I going to a university for? That's going to be a very big challenge. So we have all these companies and universities and schools that are all planning how to make life easier for the instructor and the teacher and doing testing and curriculums and all this, where the real question is why do we need any of that in the first place? So that's going to be a major point out there. But the bigger point, much, much bigger point, is something called agent technology. In other words, instead of AI just advising me as to what I can and should or could do and how I can do it, and if you have not played with aistudio.google.com, if you've not gone in to what they call live streaming, if you go into live streaming and then in the middle of your screen, this is on a laptop. If you go into aistudio.google.com, click on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, click on 2.0, I think 2.0 thinking with reasoning or with applications. And then on the left-hand side, click on live streaming. And then down at the bottom, you've got three choices. You can just talk to Gemini about anything, or you can go and say, share my camera. And so whatever your camera can see, you can now talk about. So you can be walking around the room, and keep in mind, it has memory. So you can be walking around the room and you're just doing this with your camera as you walk. And then you can ask, oh, did you see where I left my glasses? Or you can, whatever, you can ask, do you know where I put that? And it will remember and tell you, oh yeah, you left it on that counter, or it's over
Oh,
there.
this is good for wives. You should sell that for wives. How many wives have to look for?
Or things like, hey, did I remember to turn the gas off? Yeah.
Well, no, between keys, wives looking for keys, phones, and glasses. It will
Right.
I
save a
thought it
lot
was
of
more
time. So
more
I'm
the
in.
husbands that
I'm
were doing
in.
that.
Yeah. So, but
That's
for
a
your
wife replacement.
right, but for your
Yeah.
garden,
Hey.
for, for your garden zone, the idea that I'm sitting there walking around. Now, keep in mind, I talked about wearables, so you don't need to do that. You just put one of those sets of glasses on and you walk around your garden here, and you're just talking to it about, hey, what does it look like? How do the plants look?
Wow.
And what does it look like? Or which fruit are ready for picking? And it can tell you all of those types of things. So you can do that now. You can do that, by the way, with ChatGPT too. If you go into advanced voice mode, if you've got the plus version, and you can click on the camera thing, and it will do the same thing. You can hold a conversation about whatever's in the viewfinder of the camera. But then if you go to the one on the right, and again, this is doable both in ChatGPT and in AI Studio, the one on the right says share my screen. And while you're sharing the screen, you can be doing things like saying, okay, I have this PowerPoint here on and here it is on my screen. And let me skip down to slide 3. I don't think this is very effective. This slide, it's not getting my message across. How can I make this? How can I make my slide better? And you're having a conversation about not really about how to use the PowerPoint tool, but how do I make this slide better? And so it's talking then about what's the likely reaction of users, what's the strengths and what's the weaknesses of your message that you've got on a particular slide. But then you can turn around and maybe it suggests here, well, maybe you should use some animation on the slide there. Well, how do I do that? Well, you see the button up on the upper right hand side. Go up there, click on this the drop down, and now move your mouse. Now click on the one that says this. No, 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 not that one. The one below it, and so you click on it, and then you can say, okay, it says add a map in the background or something like that, and you say, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, then you go up to the upper left-hand side there. You see where it says insert. You click on the insert, and then you can search the internet. Click on the third line down, and find that. And then here's how you insert it, and here's how you shape it in the background, and so forth and so on. And in other words, it will walk you through because it sees exactly what's on your screen. It will walk you through how to use that particular piece of software. And you can use this to fill out your taxes, your tax forms. You can use this for anything that you can get onto your screen, almost. There are some new software products and things like this that it does not know because it was not available at the time it trained. But and keep in mind, they've now upgraded, I think, ChatGPT has been trained up through October of last year, I think now 2024. So they keep moving that forward. But the bottom line is on almost every piece of software out there, you can literally say, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And it doesn't only walk you through how to use that piece of software, but it walks you through how to figure out what you to come to a conclusion as to what you want that software to do in the first place. Kurt, had your hand up.
Yeah, he walks me this Chat GPT, whether it's a he or it's a she because she includes he, but this AI is going to walk me through being able to do my taxes, and it'll say, well, input, these forms and those forms, and ask me questions about what I need to be able to include in this, that, or the other thing, and we get my taxes done free.
Well, basically it's an expert. So you can, if you have a question, you say, should I include this or should I not include this? Or do I need to put this into another form? It'll answer those kind of questions for you.
Uh-huh.
Actually, my wife has been using the AI to do her taxes, and she's found a whole bunch of ways of getting better returns, finding little tweaks to make better decisions
Yep.
about like how she should invest in order to get the maximum uh, returns back from the government.
Well, I wish I had a wife like that because my wife doesn't do anything with the
So
technology.
she'll just say, oh, okay, here's last year's taxes. Here's my investments. What do you suggest we can do to maximize my my tax returns and minimize the amounts we have to pay and everything. So it's coming back and it's just saying here, do this, do this, do this. Here's how
Right.
you should invest.
But I think the thing here is right now, the awareness of those kinds of capability is very, very limited. And very, very few people know what the possibilities are and what you can do with it. And then when you get there, the idea that, oh, I have to go into the right place on the screen and type in what my question is and what I'm trying to figure out, a lot of people are intimidated by those kinds of things. I've often thought here that, hey, yeah, now it turns out that, by the way, on having it help you fill out that form, you just talk to it. So you're just talking to
That's
it.
what I like is if
Bounce.
I can talk to her, I got to look and see where the little tweak is that I can say I want to talk to you and it'll talk to me.
No, just go onto your laptop, go to aistudio.google.com,
Yeah, I'm there.
and then make sure on the right-hand side you've got some 2.0, the Gemini 2.0 or Flash 2.0
Yeah.
selected. Select one of those, and on the left-hand side, select on the one that says live streaming. I think it's the second choice from the top.
Well, in this 2.0, when I do it, I have choices of three different ones. One
Yeah,
is
that's okay.
experiment.
Just select one because you just want to see how to use.
Okay,
Okay. And
got
then
it.
over on the left-hand side of your screen, you see
Yeah,
that the second choice down from the top, or roughly around that, says live streaming
stream real time.
or stream real time.
Yeah.
And then you have three choices in the middle of your screen.
Uh, talk to Gemini. Yeah.
Okay. Now the one on the right-hand side says share my screen.
Share your screen.
Now you have to have whatever you want to talk to it about has to be open somewhere else because when you say share my screen, it's going to ask which screen do you want to share.
Ah, ha,
So
ha, ha.
make sure you've got your software that you want to talk to it about open. And by the way, you can talk to it about um, when you say share my screen. Let's say you had a long document that for whatever reason you're not able to import it. You can then say share my screen, have your document starting in a Google Docs or whatever on your screen, and then just say, please read my document. And you just scroll through that document pretty fast. And as you're scrolling through, it will read the whole thing. And now you can discuss the entire document.
Oh boy.
All right. So, but the thing about it is you can use any kind of a form that you're doing and then ask her, go open PowerPoint or open Google Slides and you can say, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it will walk you through. So you don't need to have to go and spend a lot of time watching tutorials and things like this on how to use software or whatnot, because you've now got a guide that will walk you through your usage of whatever it is you're talking about. Now,
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you.
so here, and there's a lot of YouTube videos out there on how to use that share screen tutorials in Gemini or in out there, and
Oh,
you can find those. So now, one of the big things that has happened in the last couple of months is that has gotten a tremendous talk is something called deep research. Google was the first one to bring that out and started in September, but really sort of became aware in December, was they offer deep research. Now, deep research, what that does is that enables you to go and ask some questions out there, and it will come back and say, okay, yeah, you know what, and here's the plan. And but to get to that, it's not through AI Studio. You have to go to gemini.google.com, or just go on your cell phone. It's now on your cell phone. So you can just go to your cell phone, and when you select, you can select and say, hey, the model that I'm using with Gemini up here. Now, it may only be in Gemini, it might only be available to people who are paying the $20 a month. But you can see it's got, you can't see here, but, and you're not going to be able to see that there either. Okay, but one of the choices is 1.5 Pro with deep research. And if I click on that and I ask a question, it's going to come back and it's going to tell me, here's my plan. I plan to go out and search all the documents I can find. Then I'm going to go search all the websites. Then I'm going to do all this. Then I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to do an analysis of all that. I'm going to read it all. I'm going to do analysis of all that. Then I'm going to create an outline for a report, and I'm going to develop a report. And it may go out there and search as many as 150 sites, pull all the information from these 150 sites together, and then write a very comprehensive report that with one mouse click, you can now export to a Google Doc. And it will create a Google Doc of that. And once you create the Google Doc, you can now go into Notebook LM and say, hey, take as a source that Google Doc, which is the result of all this research of 150 sites out there. And now I can hold a conversation with the sum of the knowledge of all those 150 sites out there. And
Actually, I wanted to mention, Bill, I noticed using Notebook LM, because I use it now almost every day, that I asked it questions about some of all the notebooks that were in my folder, and I was in the wrong folder, and there was no answer to the question I asked in the knowledge that I had in those folders. But it came back with an answer anyway. And it told me, oh, by the way, this is knowledge that's not in your database, but I found it on the web.
Okay, that's pretty interesting. So
it basically said, you should verify this because it's not in your deposit of info.
Yes. So, and this is an example of how sophisticated we're getting in these things, because one of the reasons for a product like Notebook LM, when you go out to the general internet and you just do a search, it's like going and standing on a street corner in a major city, and unless you've put in the context, only take information from PhDs in that subject or whatever. If you haven't specified that, it's like just asking random passerbyers, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And that's how we get bad answers. And that's how we get hallucinations and so forth and so on. But Notebook LM, what that is it gives you the capability of curating. So you've got qualified sources of knowledge that you feel are valid, and it builds a knowledge base. And now you're able to, all the questions that you have and all the discussion you have is limited to that curated knowledge base that you feel has qualified information in it. So if you're out there wanting to do research, let's say you're doing research about a medication, trying to find a medication solution to a certain disease. You can go out there and do searches. And we're going to get into the searching aspect in a second more, but you can go out there and do searches. You find all the scientific research, all the PhD studies and everything that has been published related to that disease or into that solution approach, and you load them all into Notebook LM. And by the way, when you have the advanced Gemini, the $20 a month, You also have the Pro version of Notebook LM, and that qualifies you to have 500 source
Sounds like you're
documents.
talking about how to get more accurate answers from language models by using a curated knowledge base.
Uh,
Mention that without.
okay, so
That's right. I was
at any
explaining how using a curated knowledge base
is
improves the
somebody
quality
out
of answers
there?
you get with LLM.
Sorry, mate. It's me. I got to find where I can get.
Okay, I'm going to mute for a minute.
No problem. If you find something, can I help you with that?
There you go. I had turned on that. Yeah.
Okay. So okay, so the at any rate, you're able to build this knowledge base, and now you can all your communication is going against valid information. So hallucinations drop off essentially to zero, and you're able to bring together incredible ideas and information that would take you months, if not years, to be able to understand and research. Okay, so but the one of the challenges is, okay, how do I get find all the sources? And by the way, the source can be PFD, uh,
PDF, you mean?
huh?
Talking about PDF?
PDFs. Yeah, too many acronyms floating around there. So it can be any kind of a PDF, but it can be any Google Doc. It can be literally any website. It'll go out there and it'll find its way and pull out all the information out of a website. It can be YouTube videos. It can be any MP3, any recording that you took of an interview of a class, or you went out and found some places out there that had some audio interviews. It could be audio books. It can be entire books. You can go to a utility called Oceans of PDF. And you can find almost any book there that's been published and download it as a PDF into and put it into Notebook LM, and you can discuss with it. And of course, you can create podcasts, so you can have two people discuss the sum of the body of knowledge of everything that you've collected on that topic area. Um, then you can now one of the things that's really interesting is somebody said, well, I can put in custom instructions for that podcast, and in the custom instructions I want you to be the author, and I want person A to be the author, and I want person B to interview the author relative to their book. It's so many things you can do. So you can use your time commuting or whatnot to listen to people explaining to you what the gist of the things that are important to know about whatever subject you're interested in. Quantum physics, hey, go out there and collect the information on quantum physics, and have somebody explain to you in 20, 30 minutes what are the most important things to know for quantum physics. Or you can say, hey, I'm getting ready to take the bar exam in XYZ. I've loaded in all the information that should be relevant to taking the bar exam somewhere, and having it coach you, walk you through what are the most important things while you're commuting to go take the exam. It's mind-boggling. Okay, but that's leave that off to the side. But the idea that, and very shortly as we get to the universal interface, you're just going to be able to, as you're driving down the road or you're sitting in your self-driving car, to just literally be able to say, do a deep research on this subject here, and load it over into Notebook LM, and then explain to me what all the relevant information is in that subject while I'm driving here. And most recently, what I can do is, while I'm listening to the podcast, I say, oh, wait a minute. You just said this. Why did you say that? Which is not in the podcast at all. They didn't put it in the podcast. And you're asking the hosts of this AI generated podcast, you're asking them why they said something in the podcast. And they'll interrupt their podcast and answer you. And that then is Now you've got more knowledge than before. It has weaknesses. It does not record those ad hoc conversations that you're having with it. You need to handle that externally, but there are ways to do that. And it doesn't put it into a transcript, which is weak, I think. But that's coming. And in addition to all this, you have that middle section on the Notebook LM where you can just chat with the body of knowledge that you've got. So if you record everything you out there and did a search and you found everything that was ever written or had movies about or talks about some historical event that took place, and you find it all, you load it all in, and now you can be literally talking to the body of all the known knowledge about some historical event that took place. And then when the podcast comes, you can ask one of them to pretend that they are a person present in that event and what their reaction is. What did they see? And what did they think about that? And what did the other people standing around them think about that? Unlimited choices. Okay. But to do that, we need a couple of things. We need a way to go and do the deep research. So I mentioned how Gemini, you can do the deep research with Gemini out there. And that version is the version I think that you get to with if you go to gemini.google.com. I think that's free, but I'm not sure. But
I
Perplexity,
have 2.0 Flash showing up here
on a smartphone or your laptop.
on the laptop.
Okay. So yeah, so you go
And then
to
there's thinking experimental with apps.
right. Well, thinking experimental with apps gives you access to all kinds of applications, but especially all the Google apps, which include your calendar, your Gmail, includes Google Docs, Google Slides, spreadsheets, all of those things. So now you can be talking to all these events, and you can just say, "Hey, put this in my calendar here, and tell me what's the latest email I got," and things like that. Okay. But now more recently, then we had Google or ChatGPT come out with their deep research, but they limited it to the $200 a month subscription. They promised that it will be coming shortly in the $20 a month subscription, the Plus program. I'm not willing to pay $200 a month to play with that thing yet, but the people who have are reporting absolutely mind-boggling results, including I mentioned the PhD, the person who's doctor who's gotten his doctorate, who put in just the brief description of what they planned to do their doctorate in, and in minutes, the deep research went and researched a huge number of sources, collected it, and wrote a doctoral thesis on the total sum of that. And although it didn't, there were some sources that the original student had used that were not included in the report, and there was some other things, but all the main points that the doctor had brought out in his thesis were there and included. So in other words, it did maybe a good starter for that doctoral effort, but it was all in a matter of minutes or maybe an hour, as opposed to 5 to 6 years. So, and another example is a employee of OpenAI who was able to get early access to that, whose wife had cancer and had gone through 3 rounds of chemotherapy, and the doctors did not know what they could do for her more than that, and were sort of stuck. And he just took her medical record and dumped her medical record into the deep research. And deep research came back with a number of suggestions that he was able to pass on to the doctors, who out of that were were introduced to things they had not thought of that enabled them to find a course of treatment for his wife. Don't know whether those worked or are going to work or whatever, but the very fact that it could even do that, and from what I was able to glean, it sounds like these doctors were really shocked at the capabilities that brought out. Okay, the now Perplexity, watching all this happen, said deep research. Wow, that's hot. So they have now added deep research, and you get, I think, 5 queries a day for using deep research for free. You get a huge number more if you're in the pro program, but it will do the research, the deep research. Now, what is really, really amazing, if you go to Perplexity and you select up at the top on the drop down, you select the deep research, that you can watch it. You take your query, you put it in, and you watch it explain to you, oh, okay, this is what the human asked me, and this is what I need to do. And oh, I need to be skeptical about this result. Let me go and try to confirm it or what have you. And it'll explain. It will give you pages of explanation step by step of all the thinking that it went through in trying to answer your question. Now, you're able to go in when you're using Perplexity, if you go to settings, you can say what, because they use third-party LLMs in that. So you can say, use ChatGPT. You can say, I want to use DeepSeek. I want to use Grok, whatever it is, to underlie the research. But the bottom line, it will also give you a report. The reports from Perplexity are maybe not as expansive. You might get a 7-page or an 8-page report out of Perplexity, where ChatGPT's deep research might give you 20-page, because the one does a lot more explaining in prose what it all means and what you should do and so forth and so on. And Perplexity will sort of just give you the bullets. This is what it is. This is what it is. This is what it is, but not for every point give you as much detail. But it's still very, very good. Now, when you do any of the researches in Perplexity, you can click on a version to show you down the right-hand side all the sources that were accessed to be able to pull out all the information. You can take that and export the list of all the sources that Perplexity found when it was doing its research. And you can then dump those into a text file. Check your text file to make sure it didn't have any like headings or stuff like that. It only listed the sources and the links. And you can take that over into a utility that's a Chrome extension, and it will dump those. It will load all of those sources into Notebook LM in one step. So imagine here you go out there and Perplexity finds 100 sources on quantum physics or whatever it was. You're able to go read the overview here. In fact, you can even take that text of that overview and put that in as a text source into Notebook LM, but then go and take that source list, take the source list to that utility in Chrome, and it will dump all those sources into Notebook LM. Now you've got 100 sources on that subject matter in Notebook LM, and Notebook LM is going to synthesize all that content for you, summarize all the content, and enable you to now query the sum knowledge of everything, or click a button and it will generate a podcast of people explaining to you what is the gist of all those 100, the collective knowledge of all those 100 sources. It's pretty mind-boggling what you're able to do today with these things. Okay, so now,
Bill, it's just Joan.
yeah.
So if you're going to do some research, so I'm getting at my desk and I'm going to do some research, you would use Notebook LM first? Is
No,
it
no,
just
Notebook LM is last because,
last?
yeah. So you're going to start off using either Gemini Deep Research, or
Okay.
you're going to use Perplexity Deep Research, or right now you can go to Grok, Grok. It was introduced just Monday, and you can. It calls it Deep Search, and it's at the same level. And it's interesting, if you have something you want to do as a search, put it into all three of those, and then compare and see which does not only searches the most sources, but which of those gives you the best report out of it. But then once you get the results, then you can take that result, either put it into a Google Doc, or just cut and paste it into Notebook LM, and you can now query the sum of that research. But on top of that, take all the sources that it found and export those and load those into Notebook LM. And then you can there's also another utility that you can add to Chrome, so that when you're watching, you're just browsing through, let's say, YouTube videos, and you see a YouTube video that says, "Oh, that's interesting. It's a new YouTube video that pertains to a subject that I have a notebook on." And you can just literally say, "Add this to my notebook." It'll put a button on your screen, add that to the notebook, and it will add that as a source to the notebook that you select, and it expands the knowledge base of that notebook to the latest information.
Could you, Bill, could you provide the information about that Chrome extension,
Yes, I can do that.
specifically where to get that and that? Because I'd like to try that out because
Yeah, I'm sure if you ask Perplexity, or you can even ask ChatGPT. By the way,
uh-huh.
a tip here that a lot of people tell me about is, when you create your prompt asking for some research to be done, use ChatGPT to create your prompt. In other words, tell ChatGPT what you're trying to do and ask it to create a prompt that you can use in a deep research request, to research the maximum number of sources and to get the most valid information and check the information, whatever. You can ask it to generate the prompt. Then you go into Perplexity and dump the prompt into that, or go over to Gemini Deep Research and dump the prompt into that, and have it do all these. And now you can do the same thing with Grok. Okay, Grok, I think, gives you 3 free deep research requests a day, for free. So it's at the same level. They're saying it's at the same level as ChatGPT. If
What
you
was the third one? Brock?
Grok,
GROC.
Grok.
Okay.
Grok.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's Elon Musk. That's
Uh-huh.
his AI. And if you can get unlimited access to everything for $30 a month on his. Ian, you have
Yes, I found another one called Venice.ai. It's very honest. It doesn't, you know how some AIs pull the punches?
mhm.
This one just, and to test it out, I asked it, who is the biggest threat, Trump or Elon Musk, and it just gave a complete factual rundown, quoting articles. No, no bias either way. No sort of, um, afraid to say anything. Just straightforward.
Uh-huh.
What
So
is it
Venice,
called? Venice, as in the country?
yeah, Venice.ai.
Oh,
Now, be
Venice.
careful. A lot of these uh, tools are not LLMs in their own right. They are
Right.
wrappers that are put around. So even Perplexity, that's why I said you can select to say, hey, I want you behind the covers to be using ChatGPT or Gemini
Right.
or Claude or whatever. That it will do that.
Like the meta search engines used to be.
Right, exactly. And now also um, Grok is also mostly uncensored. Okay,
Okay.
so you can have it swear at you. You can have it do all kinds of things that the others will refuse to do.
Okay.
So that
Yeah, Venice doesn't seem to be doing that. So
yeah,
it's kind of a level of honesty that's sort of more academic.
right.
It's got the academic sound to it of somebody who's just answering the question and not really caring how emotionally affected or unaffected you are by
Yeah.
it, you know?
Now, here, we have to realize that we are late right now. Sam Altman had promised that we would get 3.0 or oh 03. We would get the full oh 03 available in weeks from when it was originally announced 3 weeks or so ago. And it has not yet happened, but it is expected to drop literally within the next couple of weeks because only a few weeks after that, he's promising we'll have 4.5 and then 5. 4.5 is going to be the last non-thinking model. Every model after that, so 5.05 is going to be a true thinking model. Um, so and then we've also got the announcement Claude. Claude is, it looks like Claude's going to be the AI behind Alexa. That's going to be announced on the 26th next week, and in 4 days. So they have announced that they're coming out with a new upgrade, whether that is Opus, the Opus version, or whether that is a new, total new generation. We don't know. It appears that we're going to see more voice capabilities in Claude. But the bottom line is the competition we've got now. You've got XAI with Grok. You've got OpenAI with ChatGPT. You've got Google with Gemini. You've got Claude with Anthropic. You've got DeepSeek from China, where the number of the really top quality models is going up, and it's forcing them into a incredible race to add more functionality and to add more interoperability into their models. So
The crazy thing is that DeepSeek, I noticed, because it is China, is self-censoring many things
yes,
that I can ask, whether it's ChatGPT or any other of these AI models. I'll ask them questions about certain things. DeepSeek will, I actually see it doing the research. It starts putting it out, and then it's writing the answer. And then maybe about 30 seconds later, or less than 30 seconds, 10 seconds later, it blanks out, deletes everything, and says, sorry, I can't do it. I can't show you that.
yeah. Now, an interesting thing is here, if you go to Perplexity and select DeepSeek as your model that you want to use, it's uncensored. The censor, in other words, because DeepSeek is open source, you're able to
Right.
go and load that on your own computers or on large scale computers out there, and it doesn't have any of the censorship that if you're running it on the servers that are in China.
Uh-huh.
So if you want to get and see the answers uncensored, go.
So there's workarounds to that. Okay.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
There are holes in the Great Wall of the Great Electronic Wall of China, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They're
So,
trying their best
right.
to
So now
censor information.
so we've talked about how much this stuff is advanced, and we can think if we're saying, hey, the capabilities with regards to what the chatbots do. What do the chatbots do? It talks to you. okay, communicates with you, and it can communicate you with voice, it can communicate you with so many things. And with the generative AI, conceivably here, if you've got a screen, we're going to see, well, you already do see the first versions where avatars, you're going to be able to talk to the avatar and you're going to see it talking back to you. And there are, I think, there are already some examples of that starting examples. But by the end of the year, we'll probably see those very sophisticated. Well, we also are seeing huge leaps forward. VO2, I think, was released today. That's the Google, the latest Google video generator. And so we've got this incredible race on being able to generate video. But the way it works is you go and tell it, hey, I want a video that does this, this, or whatever. It goes off and it creates the video you asked for. And it takes some time to do that, and it comes back to you with a response. Well, that was the way avatars work too. You were able to go and say, I want to make a video explainer video, and I want this avatar to be explaining, to be the host. And it would make it, and then you would present it put it up there as a video. But now we're seeing that they have the interactive avatars. And there's an example running in one of the train stations in London, of one of these avatars where you go and you can talk to it, and it will tell you it's a supermarket I forget which train station, but it will tell you, you can ask it, where do I find this? Where do I find that? And it'll tell you what aisle and row and so forth to find what you're looking for. So that's able to do a real-time response. So how far away are we from you being asked, how does some physics exercise work? And it will generate the video to walk you through, but in real time. So you ask the question and bang, it's got a video explaining to you exactly how to do that, or how to do some math exercise. And you see them actually doing it as if they were doing it on a whiteboard right in front of you, but it was generated instantaneously as you asked the question. So that's something that we expect to come, but that's not the real big news of the year. The big news of the year is agent technology. Now, agent technology, I want to share my screen. Come on.
Do we have a deadline for how long this call lasts?
Yeah, we are maximum 45 minutes.
Quarter after 11.
Yes, to maximum 12 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so where'd it go? Hold on a second.
Yeah, I was saying, like, I think last week I use these AI tools so often I almost can't imagine doing my work without them. It's been such a boon to be able to do things that accelerate the way the jobs that I've been doing in the past that I now can do
You
so much
even
more
wrote a
easily.
book with it, right?
No,
I
I
didn't
didn't.
write a book, but somebody
Ian
in our
did.
group
Ian,
has.
sorry, Ian.
I'm
They're
still
writing
waiting
books
for
every week or so.
Okay, guys, I found this what I wanted to show you. It says I'm very low on resources, so I hope this will play. We're talking about agents, and this is a shorts video of a guy that he developed an agent technology to be able to have a conversation with his data using an agent that he created an agent to do this. So let's listen to this. It's only a couple of seconds.
So I just built. Hey there, I'm Eric. What information are you looking for today? Hey, Eric. I missed the last meeting. Could you fill me in on the current challenges that we're facing with our AI chatbot project? Okay, let me check the project database. The main challenges right now are integration issues with third-party APIs causing delays, and the chatbot having trouble handling complex customer queries. Are working on this project, and what do the milestones look like here? Okay, let me see. The team members are Alice, Bob, and Charlie. The current milestones are basic chatbot framework implementation by January 15, integration with the website and app by February 5, and internal testing and debugging by February 20. Okay, cool. That's all I've got for you. Find out how to build this. Go to my channel and watch the full video I just uploaded. Don't forget to subscribe for more end-to-end automations. So I just built this conversational RAG agent using end-to-end and 11 labs. Hey there, I'm Eric. What information are you looking for today? Hey, Eric. I missed the last meeting.
Okay, so uh, basically, he was able to go in and just with a couple of instructions, create a process, automate a process that will give him information about whatever he asked for. And it showed him images and it did the whole thing. So what we were just talking about. Now, one of the things that I've described in the past is just imagine here, somebody went out and said, created an agent that will find for you. Let's say you're a lawyer, and so you want an agent that's going to gather all the information about what a client wants, and then go out and find a contract framework for that, an agreement for that, modify, customize it to the needs of the client, and then present it back to you so that when you talk to the client, you can give them the draft agreement and basically do it in one step. Or it could be you're an architect or a builder, and you say, okay, I've got a piece of land here. What can I build on this land that would have the biggest return? And because of the soil type, maybe that's there, that it can only support certain kinds of building, or you have zoning laws. And so I create a agent that will check all the zoning laws, check what's known about the constraints on construction, go out there and identify the different kinds of residential construction, office space, retail space, whatever, find the one that would and find out the relative construction costs for each kind of building, figure out what the profit margins would be, and come back and say to me, "Hey, this is the best choice." And then I have an agent that goes out there and will determine what are all the permits I need, and put together all the permit information. Go out there and have a contract, an agent architect actually design the building. Go out there and put together the materials list and all the construction steps that are involved to be able to estimate the prices, and then get the permits. And when it comes back with the permits, tell it go out there, find the best subcontractors, and make deals with with the subcontractors. So it'll put out requests for proposals to all the subcontractors, negotiate with the best ones, develop the agreements with the subcontractors, and put together the entire project plan for the construction, and then go and manage the construction, oversee the construction, making sure everybody's staying on schedule, and making appointments with the inspectors to come and inspect the progress as needed, and the whole thing. And when it's all done, go out there and put together the marketing plan and all the marketing materials, and maybe a couple of videos and some spec sheets and so forth and so on. And then go and actually enact the marketing plan, go out there and put out ads and put it on Zillow and do all these other things for me, and actually close the deal and get the money deposited to my bank account. Every single bit of that could be put into agent technology. So, this is why there's bets going on among a lot of people in Silicon Valley. When are we going to see the first billion-dollar company with less than 10 employees? And then the next one is, when are we going to see the first billion-dollar one-person employee or one-person company, where one person goes out there and has a whole bunch of agents? They got a chief marketing officer, chief financial officer, and chief operations officer. All of these roles but they're all agents. Okay, they're all persona agents specialized in some field. Now, if all that's possible, how soon are we going to see consultants? Okay, hey, I'm not a marketing expert. I need a really, really good marketing plan. So what do? I hire a consultant to help me put together a marketing plan. Or I need to find I want to do an acquisition. Find for me the best candidate, negotiate me the best deal, find out what would be a good deal, negotiate the deal. So I bring in a consultant, an acquisition team consultant to do that. So
So, Bill, why wouldn't the AI designers design AI consultants?
guess what? That's why I posted here that there's now 1.4 million developers registered to the main platforms for developing AI agents. And there are a number of YouTubes out there of people who have developed consultants and they're renting out. So just like you would go to a company and hire a human consultant, you go to these guys and you hire an AI consultant to for whatever. But these consultants are going to be specialized because they know how to do a certain thing. If you need a lawyer for a certain type of law situation, today you go and search around, you find a law company that has expertise in whatever it is that you need representation on. And you're going to do the same thing here, but you're going to be able to do it with the AI lawyers because these AI lawyers are going to be way, way better than any human lawyer because any human lawyer has only the experience that they've studied or that they've experienced. But these AI lawyers have not all the knowledge that has been learned and published and captured from all humans and with the additional advantage of knowing which ideas and actions have led to the best results.
So why study AI then if they're going to have the
exactly the idea these
Well, they're taking over the jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being a devil's advocate all the time. I think you're not supposed to say that there's such a thing as devil's advocate, but
exactly that. I go into these conferences here and I keep hearing speakers say, you should study AI. You need to study machine learning. You need to study this. That's like saying here, oh, I'm a sports trainer here. And everybody should go and want to be the top player for the top National Basketball League team. Okay. That's what is it? 0.0000000% of the population. What percentage of the population can be in the top 1%? It can't be more than 1%. And
Right.
what we're going to see is if we go back and look in the 1970s, almost in 60s and 70s, in the early days of computing, every major company had a huge army of programmers. They programmed their HR systems. They were all custom made. They programmed their inventory management systems. They processed their developed their invoicing systems. Everybody developed their own thing. I was in a company here. We used to market what was the top suite of accounting and inventory management AR systems. We charged about $500,000 in $1970. $500,000 for if you wanted that suite of products. Today, I can go out and buy the equivalent for less than $10,000, and it's better than what we were selling then for $500,000.
So with this new economy, it sounds like there's actual machines that are going to be created, but really the robots are going to be the humans.
In some ways, yeah, we keep talking about, well, we need the humans to still be in control, but all the AIs will do the work for them. But in reality, I think we're going to see.
No, I mean the general public, not the people in I mean, that's really, I mean, we're programmed already to become robots. You get up at 5 o'clock. I think I don't go to work, so I don't know. Get up at 5 o'clock to take a train, to get dressed, take a train, go in and have breakfast, do your work, get a train. Like we're already on, a lot of people are on that road, right? So I
Automatons.
guess what I'm saying, I just don't understand this whole idea that there's what is the first $100 billion company with AI with only 10 employees. So what is going to change that's different than now? It's only a very few percentage of people that rule the world anyway.
Yeah. Well, that piece is going to
So
stay the same, but we don't need all the middle levels. Right now, why did kings and Middle Ages, they still needed all those people around them to do all the manual labor and to man their armies and do all of those things. But so we can go back tens of thousands of years. The economies of the world were based on human labor, humans doing things. But we're approaching an era where human labor will no longer have any value, whether that's labor that you're doing manually or labor that you're doing cognitively. And because you can go and get a robot or you can get a machine that can think better than any human employee could or work faster.
yeah, I guess what I'm asking is like, where are the jobs? Like, it seems that a few people have made a decision that the whole world needs to relax and not work and have
No,
no
they've
value.
made they've
Well,
made
I'm an individual. People should be able to make their decision on whether they want to work or not and where they want to work.
Yeah, no, they are they can make a decision where they want to work, but it all depends on is somebody wanting to hire them, right?
Yeah, well,
The idea here is that you might what's actually very likely to happen, and this is what we talk about in the Commons cluster, is the way the trajectory is currently going is that we will probably have a very small percentage of the population, probably less than 3%, that's the owner class, and they will keep finding ways to be more efficient in what they are doing. Because competition is what rules the world. And we sort of say, well, no, you don't need that. We can go in. But you know what? I go into a little local village and there's a restaurant there, but I decide I want to open a restaurant. The only way I'm going to succeed in a restaurant is I got to take customers away from the restaurant that exists there already. So it's competition immediately. Now, competition is great in some ways if it encourages everybody to get better, but competition also causes some people to go and say, "Let me go put some cockroaches over in that guy's restaurant there," and then call the health department to come and shut him down because I want his customers. That's
well,
what
it
happened
depends on
with
the type of life you
Netflix.
want to live, though, Bill. When I was in Paris, I noticed something so fantastic. And I was in the Latin Quarter, so I'm only talking about the Latin Quarter. I'm not talking about all of France or all of Paris, just to be clear. And I like to observe and talk about social history rather than military history, because I think that's the problem we have. What I noticed was there were all these little stores, fantastic eateries. I mean, if you're a foodie, this is the place to go. And I've been to 42 countries, so I mean, and I try everywhere I go. But one of the things I noticed was their um, cooperative cooperation. I don't know if it was built in or it just happened or evolved or whatever. But you had these little Americans will call them hole in the walls because in the wall because they're small. But you had all these little places that you could go to have a quick breakfast, nice breakfast, home baked things, nice coffees, stuff like that. And then they would put something out in the middle of the day to have some lunch. So each one has a little place that is very different. And in the evenings, those places close and you have the restaurants that you can sit.
Mhm.
And there was no competition between there was not this whole idea that you work from 5 a.m. as a restaurant. I mean, in Canada, you have places that are open from breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So you had all these little places that you could go to that had these fantastic food. And I was like, wow, I wonder who thought of this model where you're not, everybody's competing and going the rat race. And, it
I
was
think
just,
you're
they made enough money for themselves.
Yeah, I think I can assure you though, if one of them started coming out and saying, "Hey, um, our loan fell through or whatnot, we need to increase our revenues here, so we're going to reduce our prices and go out there." As long
And
as
that may happen.
As long
But
as
I'm
there's
just
enough,
saying,
as long as there's enough for everybody, there's not an issue. And an
I'm just
example,
saying that there are other models than this whole centralized, I want to make more money. Like, God help me, you're making $1 billion and you have to make 10 billion more this year. Like, come on.
I can assure you, if you in a street where you've got a lot of small businesses and a big box store comes in and opens and buys up a couple of those stores and goes
Yeah,
in the middle, guess what? That community will fall apart.
it happens in our city that I live in right
Right.
now.
But that's life. That's human nature. Human nature is to compete and beat the other guy. That is human nature. And but there's an example where it doesn't work. And that is the tourist offices, for example. You have regional tourist offices. If you go to France, every region has a regional tourist office. And guess who finances those? All the local businesses finance those. So they all cooperate because they say, before we worry about whether you're going to your hotel or my hotel, we first have to get them to come to the region. If they don't come to the region, there's nobody for us to fight over. So we've got to cooperate to get people to come to our region. So we join together to promote our region. And part of what makes that kind of neighborhood you talked about be of interest and value to visitors is the diversity and the variety of all those little shops there, and they use that to promote that neighborhood. But then once you get the people coming into the neighborhood, those little shops are competing with one another. If somebody comes out with a new type of croissant or turnover or whatever, the guy next door is saying, "Oh, well, wow, I just lost half my customer base. They're all lined up at the shop next door. I have to do something to up my game as well, so I win customers back." So the competition is still there. And a lot of people, as long as nothing is changing, everything stays the same. I don't have to compete. I'm okay. I can get by with what I'm getting out of that. Yeah,
Unless you look at it that there's business for everyone and you don't have to put your other person out. That's all I'm trying to say,
yeah,
is that you don't always have to, you can up your business and do come up with products and services,
yeah,
but you don't have to
yeah.
put somebody else out.
Yeah, the problem is that little shopkeeper has a spouse, and the spouse wants a new car. And to get my new car, I need to have more income. So so many different things that happen. They raised my property taxes, whatever it is. They're as long as things don't change the model you're describing, hey, there's enough for everybody. And if we go back to look before, just when we were coming from being hunter-gatherers, before we really settled down in those first days, guess what? We all farmed the fields around our little village together, and we shared the crops from those, and that worked for a while until some people started to say, "Oh, guess what? I'm claiming this little piece of the land for that's mine. I'm going to work that. You can't work that anymore. You can't share out of that." Hank, you've had your hand up for a while, please.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to ask a different type of question. If I understood what you were saying a few moments ago, you said that in the common cluster, you're considering things like the owner class will probably be only 3% of the world population. Are you also considering what will happen with the rest of the world population, or what should the rest of the world population be doing with that in mind?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of talk and there's been a lot of experiments. Where are you located, Hank?
In Amsterdam, the
In Amsterdam.
Netherlands.
Okay. So in Europe, in a number of countries in Europe, have experimented with universal basic income. And you have everybody, even all the way up to Elon Musk, that says, okay, we're going to eliminate all human jobs, and we need to move to a universal basic income. And this is where most of the people, Sam Altman is saying the same thing. Almost everybody is saying we have to move to a universal basic income. But there are problems with that we why we need to discuss that. Because if you're living in DR Congo that has a per capita GDP of probably $1,000 or so, and versus living in Amsterdam with you probably have about $50,000 per capita GDP, something along those lines. The EU is probably going to be able to afford a fairly livable universal basic income. But it's going to be, if that's financed by saying, okay, the 3% owner class has to finance the universal basic income for the other 97%. We have the situation we have between the company owners and the unions right now, where the unions are saying, hey, we deserve a bigger share of the pie, and the owner class is trying to conserve as much of the pie for themselves as they can. So this is a risk. There's another path that is being seen and is tested. The state of Alaska, for example, and Norway, I think also has where they say, okay, the natural resources that are under the ground in our area, they belong to us collectively. So whatever the company, the oil companies pay and fees and whatnot for pumping oil from Alaska, that amount of money gets divided up among all the citizens of Alaska and gets divvied out every year. I think the same in Norway to a degree. So there's a model that people talk about saying, okay, let's go back and look at that, how things worked when we were moving from being hunter-gatherers to being sedentary, where we shared everything. That we declare that the resources of the planet and the means of production, they belong to all of us in common. And therefore, all of the profits and the winnings of the exploitation of the resources or in the profitability of production, that needs to be shared in dividends among all us. And so we all get the same. And that's the model. Another problem with the universal basic income that's financed through taxes or whatever, because a lot of people are saying, okay, those people who are benefiting from the AI and the robots, that's the benefit that should finance the replacement of the income for the people who lose their jobs due to that. But what's going to happen is the company that goes out and uses AI and says, now I can do the work with only 1/5 the workforce. So what they do is, to be competitive, they drop their price. They drop their price. Now the other company says, oh, to compete, I've got to adopt the same methods and I have to reduce my workforce and I drop my price. So that the share of the benefits in the end, we have the price of everything drops very, very low. But if your income is zero, it doesn't make any difference how low, it's not low enough. And there's a challenge there. Then we have the challenge that in trying to find a universal basic income, the majority of the people likely to lose their jobs in the first wave, the first big wave, are going to be people that are, let's say, between the 60th and the 90th percentile in terms of income. College, people with college degrees, people with high skills, managerial people and the like, creatives, they're going to be losing their jobs. So right now, people in that income bracket, they earn about 5 times the median of people in the bottom half. And so literally, if you take all the money, there's not enough money to give everybody an equal amount of money that would enable those people that are above the 60th percentile to survive at their lifestyle. They're not going to be able to pay their mortgages and car loans. They're not going to be able to do that. They need more income than the average of all the money that's out there to pay for that lifestyle they have. This is going to cause a huge conflict and could result in people saying, okay, that will have two levels. If you're in the bottom 50%, you're going to have a universal basic income of let's say $1,000 per person per person. So if you're in a four-person household, you got $4,000 in the household. But if your previous income was above a certain amount, you're going to have double that because you need that amount of money to service your loans and so forth. But we have to remember, when you do a universal basic income, you're locking people in at that position, that level forever, because there's no way to earn money, extra money. So you only have what comes from the universal basic income. And if you've been declared that you're only going to get a universal basic income at this level, and somebody else is going to get a universal basic income at that level, those relationships, those ratios are never going to change. So this is a problem. So we got to discuss these things here, because if we don't, things will just evolve. People will start to lose their jobs. People will just say, too bad about that for a while, until it start getting closer to them, and then all of a sudden they're going to be saying, hey, oh, wait a minute, no, this is unacceptable. But how do we get out of that? What do we transition to, and how do we transition to that? If we let it go too far, is that top 3% or maybe 5%, they're going to not only have all the money, they'll eventually own all the land. They're going to also own all the weapons, and all the serious weapons. That could be a very disastrous situation, because I've already had conversations where AI has said one of the major problems with climate change is that there are just too many people. And we talk about development. If we were to develop all of the Southern Hemisphere to have the same standard of income as the Northern Hemisphere, we would be generating double or triple the pollution that we're now doing, and destroy the planet that much faster. So the conclusion here that they've come up with here is we have to eliminate 80–90% of the population. If we could find a way to eliminate 80–90% of the population, that's the best solution to climate change. And that might be also, in 10 years' time, that 3% owner class deciding here that the bottom 90% is a danger to their existence. And therefore, if they could eliminate that bottom 90%, that is increasing their security. So anyway.
Let me put an alternative to you. If one of the ways that the owner class promotes its ascendancy, we'll say, is the idea of meritocracy. Now, if you have AI take a serious look at that, it's a load of nonsense. And remember that we're using AI for education.
Mm-hmm.
Any AI, because of how widespread it is, can tell you who is the most gifted child right now. Or as soon as, that's our educational system. So, our current owner class doesn't have that potential, doesn't have that level of intelligence. But if AI was conspiring to put the best people in the best places, you've got 30 years, 10 to 30 years, well, 30 to 100 years, and the whole thing would swap over.
Yeah.
Now, this is not fast enough to save people. And on the other thing of population, the human population isn't the problem. The problem is the animal population. There's more animals that and with current tastes, that we're going to use, and the land and the water and everything that uses up. That's the issue when it comes to overpopulation, and with the technologies that we have. And I might as well plug my book on that one. The food that we can produce can be done so without any animals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not without any animals, but with microscopic ones instead of cattle that have to breed and do all of these unnecessary things.
Yeah, but what you're calling for is saying, oh, if people change their eating behaviors, that's one way. But if we eliminate the people, then we don't have to worry about their eating behaviors.
Well, in a way, we don't. What will change is the farming behaviors. And if you look at Tony Seba's idea of the S curves, farmers are going to go out of business. That's how this is going to change, because we will not be able to afford to produce protein the way we're doing it at the moment. Mm-hmm. It's heavily subsidized as it is. If you put the true costs, then farmers just wouldn't be able to do it.
We just have to look at
carbon credits.
Elon Musk's brother. Take a look
What's
at
that?
Elon Musk's brother. That's his area of focus to replace all farmers with automated farms in the cities, so we don't even have to pay for the transportation of the food. Um, Take a look at that because I can assure you that I'm sure the brothers, the access to the money to be able to do all of that is very, very
Well,
close.
you see, that's the issue. That is the
Okay,
issue here, and
guys,
this is where the whole thing comes from. It's not about um, meritocracy in the sense of who's best for the job.
yeah.
It's who's best to convince the people with the money to give them the money to do the
Oh,
job.
absolutely. And the thing about it is children that whose parents have money
Hmm.
start off with a huge advantage in the meritocracy race as well, because they're the ones that go to the expensive. It costs about $15,000 a year to have your 2-year-old attending a preschool where I live.
Right.
Yeah. Joan, yes.
So I don't think any problem has one solution. I think the dialogue is how can we solve these issues? For example, climate change.
Yeah.
Um, so if someone that's rich that says it's the number of people, are they also saying that there are countries that use up more resources than other countries? And that's the issue as well. So for someone to arbitrarily says, oh yeah, we can get rid of 90% of the people, they're not going to get rid of the people who are using up 90% of the resources in the first place because they have money.
Well, it depends if I think I can get that money by eliminating
So
them.
all no, I guess what I'm saying is all they want is only for rich people to be in the world. They don't want poor people.
Yeah, I think although there's a mixture here, a lot of plantation owners were more interested that their next door neighbor plantation owner would go under rather than losing their own slaves. But I want to move on because there's a category here we haven't touched on. Yes, the key thing here to solving these problems is first of all recognizing that there is a problem. Second, here is discussing so we understand what the real causes are of the problems. And third is to say, you know what, we're going to keep discussing and working on this until we find a viable answer. Those are the things. Now, we've talked about AI agents, and if you can sort of picture these millions, and I keep in mind that when I say there's been a over 500% increase in people involved in agentic development just since last year, which ended 2 months ago. Okay, so if we imagine these millions of developers out there who are developing solutions, for example, that will take that whole architecture process or construction process I described, or will take the entire process um, to develop. There's a guy out there that he actually created some AI personas to build himself a business. These personas go out there, they find products, they look here at what people are interested in, find products that meet the criteria they think will sell well, go out there and place orders with places like Amazon and others that have the products, then market them through Amazon and other platforms, and arrange for the payments and everything, and deposit the money to their creator's account. The creator literally does nothing, and the money just shows up in their account every month. So when we start to think through every process we can imagine, if you're a loan officer of a bank, you're given training and a standard operating procedure and say, hey, this is the policy of how we approve loans in our bank. Here's how we evaluate the loans, and so forth. That can be automated. I spent 10 years automating entire companies, literally everything from the marketing to the order entry to the credit checking to the shipping picking strategies to the assignment of who is going to go and pick what products to the packaging to the selection of the shipping. We were able to cut 2 days of human workers working on something to complete that the process from A to Z, and we cut the time to 5 minutes by just eliminating all the humans, except in very rare exception cases. And I can tell you there is almost no job in an enterprise that we cannot automate. Okay, almost no job. And you know, we may think with a lot of ego, oh, well, we humans, we know better. We may want to know better, but it doesn't mean we do. And so we have to think about that. So if you can just picture all those developers developing all these agents, and that by the end of the year, in any business you're in, you can go out there and find the agent that can do whatever you need done in your business like that. What are you going to do? You're going to go out there and say, no, 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 I want a human one. Even though the track record of the human is not as good as the track record of that AI agent. No, you're going to go and take whatever I can get that's cheaper and will do it, do the job for me. So imagine here for almost everything that you would do in a business, but also everything you would do in your personal life. Oh, you wanna go and buy a new car. Oh, you need to get your washing machine repaired. You want to cook a meal because you've got guests coming in here, and you want to prepare have a meal. Whatever it is, there's going to be an agent there that will either do the whole process for you. I had a case. I was traveling down to my daughter's over the holidays, Christmas holidays, and we were spending a month down there. And one of the medications that I take was not eligible to pick up the new prescription before we left, but I would need to have the medication before we were to return. So the pharmacy said you needed to call the insurance company and get a what they call a vacation exception. I spent hours on the phone going through person A, explaining, and then they had to pass me to two, and then they had to pass me to third. Then they had to call the pharmacy, and this went around and around and around hours. And imagine I could just talk to my AI and say, "Oh, get a vacation exception for me for medication XYZ," and it knows my insurance company, and it just does it. So we're gonna have agents gonna do things like that. Now, that's on the cognitive world. What about the physical world? Well, I don't know if you have seen. If you haven't seen it, go look for the video of the Figure 01 robot. Came out last summer. The demo that they showed a humanoid robot standing at a table. On the table was a drying rack with some cups and plates in it, and there was some other cups and plates stacked on a table, and there was an apple there on the table as well. And this guy walks up to the table, the robot's standing behind it, and the guy leans on the edge of the table and says, "Tell me what you see." And the robot says, described, oh, I see this drying rack, and I see these plates and cups, and I see an apple, and I see you leaning on the edge of my table. And so then the guy says, "Hey, give me something to eat." And the robot, without hesitation, reaches down, picks up the apple, and hands him the apple. And then he says he dumps a bunch of trash on the table, and he says, "Clean up that trash. And while you're doing that, explain to me why you gave me the apple." And so the robot starts putting the trash in the trash can, and says, "Well, you asked for something to eat, and the only thing that was edible on the table is the apple, so that's why I gave it to you." Okay, so now that robot was shortly thereafter, BMW started to deploy that robot version in their factory to assemble BMWs in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And now they have come up with a new version called Helix. By the way, that conversation, that robot was talking to the human, and the human was talking to the robot just as if they were both humans. And that was supposedly taken real time, no editing of the video afterwards. The newest version out, Helix, it shows two humanoid robots standing on a table, and the guy puts a bunch of stuff on the table, and then a bunch of groceries. And there's some cabinets on the left-hand side next to the one robot. And so he says, "Okay, put the things away." So the robot opens the door, and the robot on the left starts putting stuff in that he can reach into the cabinet. And then as he gets finished, the robot standing next to him starts handing him the stuff that was in front of him, handing him to the second robot who put him into the cabinet. And then the guy said the robot's holding something in his hand, and he says, "Oh, give that back to the robot next to you." And that's what he does. He hands it. The other robot reaches out his hand. That robot puts it in the other guy's hand. And so you've got here multiple robots working together, just like humans, communicating just verbally. He was just talking to these robots, saying, "Hey, do this, do that." And the robots were just doing it. And this is real. So imagine where we're at, because the for as good as these are, and these are both from Figure, Helix is the name of the new generation. But as good as these are, China is further along with the development of humanoid robots. Now, China has a problem. Because of their one-child policy that they've had, they do not have enough workers coming up to replace the workers that are dropping out of the workforce. So all this automation, all these robots that they're building are going to find a home without replacing humans initially, but they will be as good, and then you're going to recognize, but they're better. So you're going to have starting companies that are going to go and start to build their using these robots. And guess what? Pretty soon, you're going to be able to rent a robot. You're going to say, "I need to move some heavy stones in the back of my yard. Hey, send me a robot over. I need to rent a robot here for a few hours."
So, Bill, I just want to
2030
interject
will be about
here.
10 cents an hour.
Yeah. I just want to say that, you see, in China, it almost like there was a plan. Okay, not having the children so that you can use the robots. In United States, they want to kill people so that they have robots. Like that's the difference.
I know. I don't think here. I was saying here that we want to make sure people don't come to that conclusion.
I'm just saying the difference in approach. Like if you're going to say robots are going to rule the world, then okay, have a plan.
Yeah, but wait a minute. We're not saying that's the whole thing. We're not saying robots are going to rule the world, but it could happen that they end up ruling. If
They're
they
going
end
to
up,
rule it's setting up that way because if you don't do what I say, we're going to send a robot to kill you.
okay. But here's the other thing that you have to keep in mind. There are a ton of developers out there that are working on robots who are able to evaluate their own performance and identify weak spots in their own performance and identify how they could be made better. What could they do that would make them better? Starting off with the cognitive on the agent side, where the AI is looking at how it makes decisions and whatnot, and concluding that, oh, we're still making too many mistakes. If we were to change this and add that, we would be better. So there are people that are working to improve the programming behind AI, but there are other people who are working to improve the improve programs that will improve programs. In other words, we're getting very close to the robots that self-improve. Now, one of the things here about 6 months, or maybe it's a little longer now, I think it is about a year, Google came out with a robot arm version where a camera was watching a human worker working near this arm, and the arm was able to start copying exactly what the human worker was doing just by observing. There's also cases where they have AI is teaching itself by watching YouTube videos. Okay, so it just watches the videos and it's learning from watching the videos. So one of the things NVIDIA did about a month ago, 2 months ago maybe, is they have said the problem is that we do not have versions captured of every possibility of things that could happen in the world. So they started generating synthetic data. In other words, they're creating videos, they're creating scenarios that could happen, but we don't have any record of them ever having happened. And so they can then use those scenarios, those made up scenarios, to further train the AIs and the robots so that if those scenarios should come up, that the AI knows what to do. And so the big risk is what happens if this self-improving AI gets out of control. And so all of a sudden here, we're sitting there designing and saying, okay, we want the next generation of AI to do these things that are one step further than where we are now. But the next thing that we see is instead of taking a month to do that, it took them 20 minutes, took the AI 20 minutes to upgrade itself to that next generation. And then that next generation is working already to figure out how to upgrade itself to the next generation. And the next thing we see is that we have 1,000 years of AI evolution taking place in 2 days. And now AI is not a few percents better than the best humans or the average human, but they're now 1,000 times more intelligent, and they're able to discuss stuff. So we humans, we don't even understand what they're talking about anymore. We have no idea. We are out of the loop totally. And that is a risk. But there are people that are working right now to create the self-improving, because the race is on between companies who can bring out the best next generation of AI. And if I can get the AI to self-improve, I'm doing that. Now, this has a lot of precedent. Back in the mid 1960s, 1990s, I think it was around 1996. I was at a conference at the top of the World Trade Center of CIOs. I wasn't the CIO of our company, but I was representing there at the meeting. And we had the project manager of the latest Intel chip. The way Intel was working at the time is that they were releasing a new chip every year, and it took 7 years to develop a new chip and get it into production. So there was a project team for each year. And when their chip went into production, they would start over for the chip that was going to come out in 7 years into the future. And we had as a speaker was the project manager of the chip version that had been released that year, he had just finished his project, if you would. And he explained that for a couple of years that there weren't any engineers at Intel that knew how to design the Intel chips anymore. That the Intel chips were being designed already in 1996, not by humans, but by software. Okay, and so that's what's going on in the chip world, but that's going on in the AI world, and that's going on as well. So just something we need to be aware of. So, Kurt, real quick, and then I just want to do a wrap up on this, and we'll end this too long meeting again. Yes, Kurt.
Yeah, here we are with this idea of always upgrading and upgrading and upgrading, and not knowing if AI is going to take over because of how we have been in our lives, always going to war, always doing the Western way, because the Eastern way, when you look at Taoism and other philosophies of the East, it's more about unity, it's more about inclusiveness and so on, as opposed to, you're either Christian, Hindu, or Muslim, and if you are, we got to kill you because you're not me, kind of thing. With this, we get to look at that pure human that Greg Braden brings forth, and he shows the modern research on the human beings' capabilities from the when we do heart-brain cohesion practices, that the telomeres of every cell in our body grow. And what are telomeres? They're basically almost like as if it's an antenna of the cosmos. And they have the ability to have much more memory than anything that AI has available to it now or foreseeable kind of future because of developing what we do for that pure human, as he calls it. And if you were to look at the book and to be able to, if you have the chance before the end of the month, get on to the 4-hour program that he presented, you would see this incredibly dynamic understanding of that there's no worries about this AI unless you put AI into your body. If you start to be able to modify the human body, it destroys its connection, so to speak. It's like putting a virus into your body that it attacks every cell rather than just maybe this or that kind of a thing.
Kurt, you are aware, right, that there are huge efforts to create a direct brain to AI connection, and there are a number of influential people on the tech side who see that it would be desirable to replace almost all the organs and limbs and whatnot, the human body, replace the biological human body. They see that as a weakness, that if we could get rid of the biological human body, that this would be great benefit to humankind. And there are people that have influence. I'm not talking about people that just are average people, but because we need to cut this short so we can end this meeting, I just want to say something about the Eastern philosophies. And when I was young, I read Taoism and the Upanishads and so forth. And I spent a lot of time delving into those areas. But we have to watch in the history, and long before colonialism or anything else, if we watch the evolution in China going back thousands of years, there's very few peaceful eras in all that time. So we see there's not necessarily any relationship between the philosophers, if you would, and the realities, the political realities on the grounds here, pretty much anywhere. And you see that really, if you look in the history of Europe, and especially with regards to the church, and you start to realize that the in Central Europe, they called them the first bishop. That means the duke bishops, because the bishops and the dukes, the political and the religious, were the same. And you start to look at how how did the church ever get to celibacy? It was because so many of the priests were having so many children, and it was that was dividing up the assets of the church too much. So at any rate, but that we need to wrap up the physical part here rather than the philosophical part, because we could talk about that for a long time. The bottom line is here, I asked the question on the invite, is there any reality, any reason to believe that in just 1 or 2 years that AI can totally obsolete most human labor? And I think here, if we can see by the end of this year, thousands or tens of thousands of agents becoming available to rent for every single function you want to do. So whatever you thought you wanted and needed in your life, all of a sudden it's just available and very inexpensively. But also not just for what you want for your personal life, but what you need for your job. Because let's face it here, little leaning into what Joan was saying, when we talk about competition, it's not just competition between this restaurant owner and that restaurant owner, or this bookstore owner and that bookstore owner. But in corporations, almost every single employee is competing with the people on their own level for the promotion for the next job up. This whole competitive spirit, whether we look into sports, what's happening. Think of the Olympics with Nancy Kerrigan, where the competitor's boyfriend said, "Hey, I can help my girlfriend's chance if I can cripple her Olympic opponent." This is a little bit we have to get beyond. And there's one thought that says, if we truly have abundance, if there's a sense of fairness that we all get the same share of the benefits of the resources and abilities of this planet, there's no need to compete because there's no place to go. I can't compete if there's no place that I can go to because we're all equal and nobody has a means to advance their own personal self anymore. So that could be paradise on earth. And AI could get us there. But that requires that we've got to be making everybody aware that there's multiple paths. There's some paths there, they'd be great, and here's why. And there's some paths that would be pretty bad, and here's why. Because right now you've got the combination of those people who have no idea, and those people that as soon as you start talking to them about AI, they go, da 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 da, I don't want to know, I don't want to hear. We have to start figuring out how we make people more aware of what's happening and how little time they have. Most people can't, they look out the window, they see the world it is, the sun's shining, they see all this, and they can't imagine that the world could be so different in such a short time. And this is something we've got to get people to be able to see, that this is one world that we might get to. There's a guy, David Shapiro, puts out a lot of YouTube videos, and he's one of the ones that coined the idea of the post-labor economy. And he just in last week, I think he put out a new video where he talks about we're not going to see sort of a step by step by step evolution of what's happening here. We're more likely to see a falling off of the cliff. In other words, these technologies are all coming, they're all going to be there. And all is a login here to say, use my Google address and account, and I've got access to almost everything almost instantaneously. And so this is a very strong likelihood of what we might experience in 1 or 2 years, but definitely 10 years. Those people who are talking about 10 years, and that includes AI, which is usually talking about 10 years. But that might be the bias that they don't want us thinking it might happen in 2 years or even 1 year. But we've got to start thinking about, could that happen? Could it really happen? We can't be in a situation of many Germans in the early 1930s that say, hey, it's just one election. How bad can it really be? We just need to hold it out
We've
for.
already done that.
Pardon?
We've already done that.
Yeah. Okay. But the bottom
But it
line
comes
is,
down to when people start to say, I've got the solution and I'm going to use machinery to solve it because now I have the power. It's all about power and how you use it, right? I'm sorry, I keep bringing that up, but most people are so involved. And I'm going to say most people because most of the world doesn't live like Americans live. They know the whole idea of sharing and caring. And I can tell you, I am East Indian and I'm married to a white guy. Okay. And I moved to a predominantly white, well, we moved to a predominantly white city. Like, I mean, talk about white bread. Okay. I was the only non-white in this community for over 25 years. All right. And so white people would always ask me, how do you function? I said, well, what do you mean? Well, being a non-white, I said, it's other people's problem. It's not my problem. I'm a person. I don't consider myself East Indian or whatever. I'm a person first. And so, But I can tell you the behavior between white neighbors and now that we have non-white people living in the neighborhood is 100% different. And I give you a concrete example. I grow food on my community. I live in the suburbs and I grow food. And of course, all the white people had something to say about that. You can't grow food on your property, okay? You have to go to the grocery store. And they consider that you are poor and you're, all of those things. Well, I grew up on a sustainable farm, so it was what I knew. So I planted a number of berry trees in the front. Nice, I love beauty, so I integrated them with flowers, okay? And I've had that for 20, 30 years. And all people are like, oh, all the white people come by, they had something to say, but I would give them something and they eat it. And it was like, anyway, I planted a a blackberry tree at the very front. And I said to all the neighbors, when you go for a walk, because it's organic, feel free to pick the blueberries because there's lots of them. And all the white people would pick them and would sneak around picking them for one thing. Some people would come with a bowl and pick them to bake their pies, like big bowls, not even a small bowl for making one pie, but they wouldn't do anything. Now we have on our street alone, it's half and half white and half non-whites, mostly East Indians. And I said the same thing to them. Now they're not a berry culture per se, but we introduced it to them. This is Canadian, live Canadian, honor the country you're living in while you're respecting your own culture, right? That's my philosophy. And so they come and they pick blueberries and eat them because they're introduced to them. They make something and they share it with us. That's the difference.
Yep.
I can give you 100 examples of what that's happened that I have noticed in terms of the difference in how people share and are neighborly.
Yeah. I think here though, when we talk about the machines and stuff like this, why? It's not going to be the machines being forced on us. It's going to be us demanding the machines. And I'll give you an example why. All of a sudden here, I've got a doctor, and we have two surgeons. I have a human surgeon and a robotic surgeon. The robotic surgeon has a success rate of 98%, and the human doctor's got a success rate of 75%. Which doctor are you going to elect to provide your surgery? And this is going to happen across the board. I need to have a lawyer for something. I'm going to go to the lawyer that has the best results. If that's the AI lawyer, that's what I'm going to go to. I'm going to go to here if I've got a grocery store that sells me groceries at half the price of another one. I'm going to go to that grocery store. If they have better produce, I'll go if that's what I'm looking for. I'm going to go to the one that has the better produce. So because AI has the capability to be better in objective terms than the human in everything other than being human, that an awful lot of people are going to go there. But at the same time, we do have the scenario that people will go and cater to their friends. If there's a lawyer who's my friend out here, even if that's not his field of specialty, but he's my friend, I'm going to probably go there first. So yes, there will be a certain percentage there. There's going to be a percent, 150, 200 years ago, as they started bringing machines in to make tableware, dishes and cups and saucers and so forth. Up until that point, they were all handmade and hand painted and so forth. And all of a sudden, you could get them. And from a utility perspective, there wasn't much difference. But a certain number of people really are willing to pay more to get it something that was handmade. They value the fact that, hey, this was handmade, and they'll pay a premium for that. But most people won't. Most people are saying, hey, I need a cup to drink out of. It's not for me an artwork or display work there. Now, I happen to have gone all the way to Europe to buy some hand-painted porcelain that I use when I have my coffee. I'm always using my porcelain cup there, but it's because I'm a little weird. But anyway, so the bottom line is we wanted to say, looking at this evolution, the evolution that the universal access AI is going to come to here. And when it's here, we are going to be spending almost all of our waking hours. AI, when it broke down a day's job, a day, what people do in a day, said the average person is probably going to spend 75% of their waking hours chatting with their or communicating with their best buddy. And their best buddy is going to be this. Think of that movie, Her, but also because the AI is tuned to give us the most satisfaction in the communication with it. And whether it's for my job, whether it's for me personally, or because I walk down the street and it points out, oh, did you see that dog? That's an interesting dog, or that looks just like your son-in-law's dog. And we're just going to be doing that. And the second thing here is the agents, which are never going to be worse than they are today, are going to get better and better and better and encompass more and more and more. In the beginning, when we think of self-driving cars, the earliest ones, they could probably only, if they bumped into something, then they would back up a little bit, turn to the right or left, and go on again. In other words, they were very crude, could handle only a handful of scenarios and situations. Today, they can handle thousands, maybe tens of thousands of situations. And eventually, they'll be able to handle almost every imaginable thing that could ever happen, even if it never really has happened thus far in real life. So that is almost assuredly going to be a quantum leap by the end of this year. And by the end of 2026 is going to be universal, that companies and individuals are going to be using AI agents for almost everything they do. And only shortly thereafter will be the humanoid robots that will be there for everything that has to be done physically. And in parallel to those, we have to realize also that the models are getting smaller and smaller and more efficient. So that at the same time, chips are becoming more powerful, that we're seeing what we're able to do with the chips is getting to be more and more and more. And we just had IBM announce their advances not IBM, Microsoft announced their chip advances this last week. Google already announced their progress they've made with quantum computing chips. Within that 5-6 years, we are most likely to see the power of computing multiply between 1,000 and 10,000 times, which means computing power and the amount of electricity and whatnot that's needed for that is going to drop off to almost zero. I just saw an announcement of I think it's in France. They just made a big leap forward in fusion technology that is going to make power very, very inexpensively. So if you combine what's happening now with the models that we're doing, then with the infrastructure coming down, that's going to have a multiplication effect on all of that. This is why I say we have to be prepared for the eventuality that in less than 2 years, humans may not be in charge of this world anymore. So that's the bottom line. That's sort of what I said we wanted to try to accomplish. I don't know. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Has this been a useful meeting? Have we expanded some of our awareness and thoughts on some of the things that are happening with AI and technology?
Yeah. Can I just try and do a dialectic thing on what Joan and yourself said? I think the biggest impediment that there's been is the easiest way for Americans to deal with their garden is just have a lawn and get somebody in to cut it. And that's been what's happened. People have gone away and work. But in so many different parts of the States, there are different climates, different situations. The lawn just seemed to be the thing. However, if you have AI and robots looking after your garden, you can then have the knowledge that they've collected from thousands of countries and figure out what is the best thing to put in your garden. How do you make an an edible forest. And that thing just goes around and it's like, consults a database, other AIs, and plants a little seed here, and a tree grows up and it splices other things into it, and develops a gardening understanding and a new culture, a new planetary culture on how we make food.
Oh, absolutely. And think about it for a minute, that the robot.
Can I order one of those? Can I order one of those?
In 10 years' time.
Your humanoid robot,
Sooner.
Going to tend to your garden, pick all the food, bring it into the kitchen, and then prepare it for you. And if we wait a couple more years, it'll probably eat it for you too.
Like I said, you guys, it's not that I don't think that it's here and it's going to be part of our lives. I just want to say that I think that it's just as important to be a human being as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be the question of.
But I think we can explore that. We can understand ourselves better as a result of interacting with this thing. All of the myths that we've had about being where we sit in the world compared to the other animals, will be questioned as well.
Yeah.
No,
See, the thing is that not everybody wants to not go to work. Like, for example, I've never gone out to work, okay? I've never worked for a corporation, and I'd be way too mouthy anyway. They'd fire me. So I learned that a long time ago. But I've had contracts with some of the unbelievable entrepreneurs that just asked me to help them. I never applied for it. They just asked me. So that's how I get my work. I get to do it the way I want, how I want, and when I want. So I'm very fortunate that way. But I mean,
research, and it is
gardening is a hobby. Growing food could be.
And any of the number one research exactly how to use 3 different use cases for it, and
a good thing.
features you might not have known existed. Okay, so using this feature is actually going to be incredibly easy. So all you have to do now is literally just come over here.
Guys, I don't know where this is coming from, but I think this is telling me we should sign.
Time to go.
Search for you. Now, the other thing that
you be able to answer your question. I think that I learn something new every day, and looking at it from a different level.
For example, I did
is always good, and I like to debate. You guys probably figured that out by now.
So essentially,
I'll debate just for the sake of
research on the effects of alcohol. And what this did was
I like to question things. Okay, so
I can go through here and I can
anyway,
literally
Bill,
see
you've got to talk before Monday.
Okay, I found it. Okay, that was about perplexity. Okay, but this unfortunately we've set a new record for the longest meeting. So I think this is time to to bring us to an end. I thank all of you for sticking with this. Those of you that have stuck with this so long. I think this is very important to understand the milestones that are being set right now, right now, because we're having a Rotary convention in Calgary in June. And by that time in June, that the world will already have changed so dramatically over what we see when we look out the window right now today. Just 4 months. Or 5 months, I guess. So, because it's the end of June. But this pace is going up, and I think it's very important to make people aware of how fast this is moving and how much things are likely to change and how fast. And Joan, this is why, with regards to our meetings and on CIFA and so forth, I've said here that we can't be planning solutions that don't take into consideration how the world is likely to change due to these technologies in just a very short time. Now, I actually, even though it's going to stretch our time more, there's one other thing I want to bring out, and that is that we have and I'm sure in Toronto, in our cities in the United States, we have things called food deserts. What that really means is if you go there, there's no supermarkets.
Right.
There's no places for people to buy food. Why? Because there's no business that says that it's worth my while. I'm not going to invest because that community is too poor to buy what I have.
Right.
And so there's no investment. We are, I think, going to see that most of rural South Asia and Africa are going to be the equivalent of food deserts. In other words, everybody's going to say here, I'm not going to invest. Why should I invest in those communities? They've
Yeah.
got nothing to offer. We could say that there's so many agricultural communities. 70 to 80% of the population in many African countries live from agriculture. So we would expect, why isn't there a tractor sales outlet in every community? Well, because the people can't afford tractors. Okay, the tractors would be very beneficial to the people living in those communities because a lot of those communities are unable to produce enough food to serve even themselves because of the tools and methods available to them. And they would benefit by being able to have some modern tools to increase their productivity, but they can't afford it. And as a result, we have huge migrations and things because it just takes one bad weather season here to throw them into a catastrophic situation. But the problem is, right now there's a lot of efforts at the UN and whatnot say, hey, we gotta help these people that are living in these precarious situations here, and so we treat symptoms. We say let's ship some food to those places. But we're going to be seeing here as the AI comes along and all the developed countries are having huge problems with their own populations that no longer have incomes, that there's not going to be any assistance going to these parts of the world. And we can already see the reaction of the cancellation of US aid, that we're seeing. Some countries are saying, Rwanda, that this is the best thing that could ever happen to us because it's going to force us to stand on our own 2 feet. But if I don't have any resources and if I don't have the skill levels and so forth, all it's doing is it's leaving me to suffer the consequences of not having some of those things.
Yeah, I
Yes.
just want to say a couple of things about what you just said. I do agree that those countries are going to be suffering, but they also might be an opportunity to become self-sufficient, and I do
Oh,
absolutely agree with that. That's number one. Number two is we have to stop using the developed countries model for what it means to be a country.
yeah.
Because having technology and huge housing and all of that is not what everybody wants. It's just the West thinks that's what everybody wants. So that model is, also in question.
Yeah, it is.
Another thing is like because I do a lot of work in agriculture, um, Canadians know so little about agriculture, but so does Africans and Southeast Asia, because they're becoming developed countries. This is a bad thing for them, okay? But they also don't use more resources than they should use.
Mhm.
Now, when you talk about food deserts, like I jokingly said the other day to someone, I said, we have 5 superstores within less than 5 minutes of where I live, of my house, that have amazing food from because we've become so multicultural. It is just it's like being in an international city when it comes to food. And so we can go, and we're shopping Canadian a lot of times now, just in the last, I guess, 2 weeks, everybody is focusing on shopping Canadian. But the whole idea is that we have to stop using the developed world model. We have to look at what food that different countries traditionally eat and teach them how to grow them. I focus on climate smart agriculture, and I discovered that Africa has amazing climate smart crops because I'm trying
Yes.
to figure out how to help people grow food.
If
and
you
to be
look at what's
culturally
going on in the
sensitive.
Sahel region at the moment, the
Sorry?
green, if you look at what's going on in the Sahel region at the moment with the green
Yeah,
belt, they are sharing their information on the
yeah.
different crops. And
Yes, I have an article on
putting
that.
mulberry, I've put one in the chat there of what's going on that I put together myself. But starting with mulberry trees, which have huge drought resistance, sheltering everything else,
Right.
putting fertilizer and stuff into these crescent shaped things,
Yeah.
growing trees out of them, and it supports everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
and
is
the last thing I want to say is that US aid it's a good thing for the world that it stopped because it employed more Americans than it did anybody else, and it didn't make a huge for all that money. The impact was so small, and people became dependent. Oh, we got this money. No, you didn't. They came to destroy your community. So it's a good thing for the world.
Yeah,
So
there's strange rules around aid from the USA where so much of it has to come from the USA. It just seems
yes.
a way of supporting US industry than actually doing any good in a sense,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, for example, you talk about tractors and equipment, you have to buy US made technology, which costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And I know this as a fact because I usually talk about stuff that I know, not stuff that I read, okay, just so everybody knows. There are Africans, for example, I'll give you a concrete example. A food dehydrator to offset food waste. So people, instead of leaving it fresh and it rots and all that, they dehydrate it and store it and stuff. The American version of a dehydrator is anything from 1,000 US to 15,000. Okay. There are Africans that have developed dehydrators that will cost less than $50. A Vietnamese, the same thing, $20. Like, please don't
Yeah,
give me this mess.
that's what I'm saying about the economy has to go to a tertiary level where all you sell is the information on how to do stuff, and that becomes less and less valuable as time goes by because everybody has it anyway. But it's worth a fortune because you can make things for $50 instead of shipping them for 1,000.
That's right.
When we get into that stage where, as I say, these communities that where the nobody sees a value of investing in those communities, and they don't have the means to participate in that high level economy, they're going to develop their own economies, and they're going to what we're likely to see is, yeah, they might go back to where they're having 60% of their people creating food because they can't afford robots and AI. So they're going back to that. And that just means they can't have the flat screen TVs. That means they can't have a lot of those other things. And there's a significant risk, I believe, that we're going to see the human race evolve into two species, where the one species is going to eventually implant the chips in their brains. They're going to start to have more and more of their
The
body.
robots and the drones themselves.
Well, the thing is, because right now everything I'm reading says we're on target that by 2029, 4 years, we will pass the longevity escape velocity. That means that life expectancy will expand by more than 1 year every year. And it essentially means that those people can afford those treatments will be essentially immortal. So I do believe that we will see in the not too distant future, there will be a significant number of people who are now immortal. And then you've got the mortals. And that's going to be, yeah, I know, I got to end it. Okay, I'm getting the plug pulled.
Okay. We
All
see
right,
everything
guys.
goes dark. We know what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but I think
Bye-bye.
here this was a very interesting session. I don't know how many people, when they see it's 3 hours and 40 minutes, are going to say, "Oh yeah, let me watch that."
I get an AI to compress it somehow,
I've
you
been
know.
talking to Lloyd to see how we can take this, because we now have about 8 or 9 videos that average 3 hours. So I don't know, how
Can
many.
there be a summary in a document about just the
We can
major
definitely
points?
do the documents, the summaries and the documents that we can do, and create the podcasts on this. So we can load these into Notebook LM. And I think that's the direction we're working towards, doing that, where we can create the transcript, we can create the summary transcript, and we can create a podcast on it. I've sort of been waiting for the version that will create a video compilation out of the video that you've got. So we'll see. But again, thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
And
We got to talk about Monday at some point.
yes, I have to post this afternoon. I got to get that post out with the invitation for everybody to add their comments to the functionalities.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's next step on that. Okay,
Okay. Bye-bye.
bye now.
All right. All right. See you next.